Hey, what's up, everybody? Right, all that stuff. There you go.
Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Alrighty. Sorry about that. It's another one of those days where I am just running late. Plus, Zeus is crying for some reason. I don't know why. Yeah, I blame Roll for Combat because I have so much to do before I leave on Tuesday. I got to do like, I don't know, 8 more streams or something. And I've been trying to like reorganize my closet for like the last 3 days. And you would think that this shouldn't be a problem, but I have literally been to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards like 18 times because somehow this closet project has turned into an absolute nightmare. It's somehow like builder grade closet materials, yet somehow it has ended up costing me like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I don't even understand it. It's like the lowest tier shit that you could possibly imagine. And yet somehow it's just, it's crazy. Welcome everybody. Barbar, by the way, Babar said $5 Canadian. I'm sorry to inflict this on you, but it's for the greater good. At least have a look at karma and zero systems before you faint. Yeah. So tonight's first look is sponsored by Babar. You know, as it may be, Mike. Unfortunately, Mike, Daggerheart and whatever the hell else you said don't pay the bills. You would think that Daggerheart pays the bills, but it doesn't. It actually doesn't. Because I get a lot of views, or I get a lot of views with the live streams for Daggerheart, but I don't necessarily get a lot of tips. I am looking forward to a very delicious dinner there, Roll for Combat. How big is your freaking closet? Normal sized. It's 2 connected closets along an entire wall in what used to be my master bedroom, but is now my studio. And so it's got 2 sets of accordion doors, right? But the closet basically goes along the entire length of the wall. And basically what I'm doing is that closet is set up to hang clothes. Okay. Well, my bedroom is no longer a bedroom. It's now a studio. And quite frankly, I don't need that much clothes. Plus, who the hell hangs up their clothes nowadays anyways? So I basically tore out all of the old, rail type shelving, for hanging. And I am replacing it with the vertical adjustable track shelving where you can take the brackets out and put them at whatever height you want. So if in the future somebody wants to put back in closet for hanging, they can, but I want to put shelves in, and I'm making it modular so that I can both rearrange it, but also, with a nod with a mind towards somebody else in the future. Anyways. And whoever built my closet originally built it very badly. And so basically I thought, oh, I could reuse some of this. And then, no, I can't reuse some of this. And then the standards are so horrible because whatever brand they put in when they built my closet was 1 inch thick. And everything they sell nowadays, all the different brands of the vertical, support pieces, okay, are now like 1/2 inch thick or like 2/3 of 1 inch thick, which meant that I basically had to take out all this stuff that was totally functional because I didn't even think to check. Oh, why would they make them different widths? They do. So anyways, long story short, it was terrible. As if tonight couldn't get any worse. Tonight we are taking a look at Tenra Bansho 0. A first look sponsored by Babar. And so for those of you who may be slightly insulted, let me just read this from Drive-Thru-RPG. Almost a decade ago, Japanese artist and game designer Junichi Inoue sat down to create what was, in his words, a uniquely and unmistakably hyper-Asian Japanese world. A world of magic and technology, of samurai and Taoist sorcery, of powerful mecha and cultured geisha. The world was named Tenra, and the game was named Tenra Bansho, or Everything in Heaven and Earth. With a rule book dripping cover to cover with high-quality anime-style art, a setting rich in culture and the fantastical, and a revised and simplified rules system that focused on with precision on role-playing, this game took the Japanese tabletop RPG market by storm and spearheaded a renaissance and revolution in the Japanese gaming industry. Years later, this unique and revolutionary game has finally been painstakingly translated into English for play in the West. And that is what we're going to be looking at tonight, is Tenra Bansho 0. The Heaven and Earth edition, available on Drive-Thru-RPG with a link in the doobly-doo below. So, yeah. Hey, thanks for the resub. Who was that? Was that Adar? Adarius, thank you for the resub. 4 months. Thank you, Adarius. I appreciate you saying this is the best TTRPG stream you watch. I'm glad to hear it. Never heard of spacers. Maybe not. I don't know what a spacer is. Oh, no. I don't think you understand. It's like, so see, these things here screw into the wall, okay? And then you can connect these hooks, these shelving pieces into them like that. That's it. So there's no way you could really put it would be a very weird thing to try to put some spacers behind that and and then get it precise so that all of these things line up. It would be way more trouble than it was worth. But apparently every different manufacturer of these and apparently the one whatever was installed in my closet, they don't make them anymore. Guys, you didn't have to run away. I pulled that out. The dogs got just crazy. Lady Dong Legs, who knows? I don't know. I saw the auto mod thing. Maybe it got, I don't know, automated. Ludo says, I like the body horror. Great. Everything that I love is just coming up here. body horror, anime. It's fantastic. Pathfinder, thank you for the 7-month resub. Appreciate that with the Prime membership. Appreciate that. Hope it is a good game despite the content that is clearly isn't of interest to you. Yeah, we are getting a lot of auto mods here. By the way, they are saying held message for race, ethnicity, or religion. So apparently, apparently Twitch is apparently doing a stream on Japanese is going to be very difficult for you. Okay. Well, so here's the thing: when you buy this game, you get a couple of PDFs. You get a Tenra Bansho 200 megabyte pod, 200 megabyte file, which is a fully animated or fully illustrated graphical novel, which apparently is the way that the rules are supposed to be read. Secondly, they give you a rule book that apparently is just the rules. But then they also give you a simple PDF, which is only 2 megabytes, which is just basically no art, just text. So I really do appreciate that while they give you a 200 megabyte PDF for your rules reviewing pleasure, they also do the fact of just saying, hey, if you just want the text and don't want something that is 200 megabytes, here is a 2 MB version of that. So I appreciate that. It says RPG. What are you talking about, George? Yes, this is Japanese, as in made in Japan, and then translated. Yes. By the way, shout out to this, dedicated to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. This RPG culture, which you bore, has evolved so far in this Eastern frontier. So shout out to them. Let me close. I have 85 PDFs open, including a bunch of One Ring stuff. Close all the tabs to the right. Nope, I don't want to do that. Oh, apparently I can't close all the other tabs. Now this is the graphic novel format one. You're seeing this just as I'm seeing this. Junichi Inoue. So this is actually what the book actually looks like. Now, I don't think we're going to, I don't think we're actually going to go through this. I think we're going to use the text version, because I really can't make, we are deep into the anime now, boys and girls. Oh my God. This is not even just this is just an anime comic at this point. I don't know if these are words. I don't even know. Are we in? Is there a rule book here? Ooh, a Cyclone Gatling repeater. There's no. Unfortunately, this is not a bookmarked PDF. So yeah. All right. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to go to this text version. Maybe this will help us a little bit. By the way, this is a 500-page PDF. And this is the one with no art. So, yeah. So here we have Tenra Bansho 0, the game rulebook. Well, we've got an introduction, the actions, the karma, the basic combat, the zero system, the zero act and the emotional matrix, the scenario creation rules, the 17-page of armor rules, the onmyo jutsu rules, the samurai abilities, Buddhist magic, Kijin and Mechanica rules, Kongoki Ninjutsu rules, Kugutsu rules, and the Butterfly Dream, Annelid rules, Oni Resonance, Shinto rules, the Ayakashi, the Art of War, One Tenra Against the Tide, Tenra Glossary, Media Resources, Advice, Introducing the World Tenra, 222 Things to Do in Tenra, Names, Archetypes, Creating New Archetypes, Weapons and Weapon Creation Rules, Sample Characters, and the Emotion Matrix. So that's it. Now, news alert or newsflash. This is not going to be a 5-hour stream. This is not even going to be a 4-hour stream. So we are going to we are not going to get through all of this. So instead, let's get into it. By the way, as Barbara mentioned this was brought in part to the United States of America by Luke Crane. So that's kind of how this came to be in our situation here. All right, this book takes us behind the scenes of Tenra, a hyper-Asian setting of fantasy, swords, technologies, and magic introduced in the World Guide. What is a role-playing game? We know what a role-playing game is. By the end of one session of 4 to 6 hours, you will have created an original story, a unique tale. Many of us are familiar with the idea of video game role-playing games. All right. How is this different from other RPGs? That'll be useful here. Gilmore says, someone on the server said the Karma and Zero systems would be the most look. All right. If you're familiar with tabletop role-playing games but not familiar with Tenra Bansho Zero, after you get through the world and setting sections to get an idea of how the world works, you'll want to carefully review the rules section. While characters and combat work in similar ways to other popular role-playing games, the flow of the game operates in some small but fundamentally different systems. The Karma system and Zero system will have rules which are surprisingly different from other tabletop RPGs. Please familiarize yourself with them. So even the book is telling us we should really take a look at the Karma and Zero systems. Things like the emotion matrix, which determines what your character initially thinks of other characters when they first meet. So there we go. Strike one. We're off to it. For everybody else. For me, this is great. You don't get to decide how what your character thinks of other characters. You have to roll it on the emotion matrix. I love it. Actually, I already love it. That's great. True role playing. All right, let's go. Aikichits, which are a mechanism for players outside of the scene, rewarding good role playing and adherence to their character background. And the Karma system, which reflects how your character's personality grows and changes throughout the game. Ludo wants to remind us to keep in mind that this game is made for 1, 2, 3 shots. So read your 500-page rule book for your 1 to 3 shot. Got it. Oh, there is a 0% chance that we are running a mega game of this. Now, Jess has made a bold assessment here. I actually suspect that gamifying first impressions is least likely to make players upset about their characters be controlled. And Beowulf says, LMAO, that was my thought too, Derek. So let's see. Let's see here what the we're already off to a strong start here. Okay. Random emotion matrix table to determine how your All right. All right, the poll is up. All right, the random emotion matrix table to determine how your PC feels whenever you meet a new character. All right. Tenra Bansho Zero is everything in heaven and earth. It is a play on the Buddhist expression Tenra Bansho, a concept which connotes the universe, nature, heaven and earth, everything that exists. It is from Buddhist scripture. Tenra is both the name of the land, the planet, and the string of continents. Zero is a moniker for this new edition of the game, which features tightened rules for karma and drama, which I believe somebody in chat said was the most cranified part of the system. Oh, we got at least one hate. Love to see it. Originally, this game came out in 1997 with a new edition in 2000, and then it was brought to English about 10 or more years ago. We've got a GM. We've got PCs. We've got NPCs. Acts. These are units of time which show the passage of time like in a play. 3 to 5 acts in a game session. Scenes. An act is further broken down into scenes like a TV show or anime. Scenes are where the actual role-playing game happens. Intermissions are phases of rest between acts. During an intermission phase, ki becomes replenished, character fates and destinies may change, and changes to the characters are recorded on your sheets. Okay. Zero Act. The first act of the game is called the Zero Act and is meant to introduce the characters, introduce the major NPCs, and for the GM to assign each character a destiny. Each character gets one single scene in the Zero Acts. Aiki means harmony or kinship. Aiki chits are rewards for the players and the GM, or rewards that the players or GMs give to players who are role-playing well. Whenever someone does something cool or that is something that is interesting, that player will receive an Aiki chit from the other players. Aiki is later converted into ki. It is recommended that you use poker chips, coins, or paper strips. Ki is literally the fighting spirit or a yell in martial arts. It is a symbol of your character's power. Spending ki lets the character do incredible acts of skill and grace, usually in the form of rolling extra dice or gaining extra successes. Power comes with a cost, though. Whenever ki is used, it will turn into karma. The word ki is made up of the same 2 Japanese kanji pictographs as aiki, only reversed. They are 2 sides of the same coin. So, our meta currency converts into a meta currency, which converts into a meta currency. This might be the new game that I only play. All right, so we start with, hey, we're playing well. We're having fun. You're doing interesting things. All right, I am going to award you Aiki. And then Aiki will convert into ki, and then we spend ki, and then it converts into karma. Karma is gained when ki points are spent. They represent the pollution of your soul and show the strength of the character's ties to a world of flesh and suffering. Karma is strongly tied to the 108 Buddhist defilements or sins which cause human afflictions by human suffering. Only by cutting ties to the physical world can these defilements be reduced or eliminated. Legend of the Five Rings, let's go. Well, to be clear, if we scroll down into the game itself, okay, like if we go down into the game itself, I'm pretty sure that it says like that this is the hyper Asian RPG somewhere in here. Maybe it was in the other book, but I mean it's not beating around the bush. All right. Shocking. The book does not have a good layout. All right. Fate is our relationship. It could be an emotion towards another character, a thing that we did in the past, a motivation, a belief. Oh, it was at the beginning of the book, James. You're right. Fates are the beliefs that move the character to act day to day. A character's fate could also be a trauma, a reason to continue living, or even a sin that they committed. Destiny is a special kind of fate, which GM assigns to the PCs. It is a goal that the players should try to act out through their PC during that scenario. So, I'm kind of, there's a little bit of burning wheel aspect here, right? Destiny kind of sounds like the torchbearer equivalent of your goal. But what's interesting here is the GM assigns it to you, and it's your goal, and you have to try to act that out through your PC during the scenario or during the session. Ashura When you crave for unattainable things, when you're plagued by a loss that you feel when you cannot let go, and when you cannot forget the pain of wanting things, you inadvertently or actively destroy everything that you once loved. You become an Ashura, also known as a lost soul, a demon in disguise. You reveal yourself to be evil, and your PC becomes an NPC under the GM's control. Audience. Oh, hey, Beowulf. Straight up for you, buddy. In each scene, the GM and a few of the players will participate, role-playing their character. The players who are not actively taking part in the audience in the scene are the audience. Just like the audience of a kabuki or bunraku play, they have a role in awarding good role play and character expression with Aiki chits. So, there you go. So, number one, in each scene, it's only a few players that are active. Everybody else has to sit back and be an audience member and award the players that you think did a good job. You literally throw chits at the other players. There you go. So you will be judged on the quality of your role playing by your fellow players. Scene judge is an optional rule. The role of the scene judge is to give Aiki chits to other players. As other players role play well, they should be encouraged, as well as given Aiki chits by the GM or the scene referee. Jess says, I never realized that I have never wanted anything more than throwing dollar bills at my fellow players when I like their role play. It's like they're drag queens. I was thinking the strip club, Jess, but I'm right there with you. Like, wow, I really appreciate the hard work that you're putting in. Just make it rain. Make it rain on a player for their role play. All right, the basic. Now, well, the thing is, Venture Agent, remember, this came from Japan. And I don't think they had Vampire the Masquerade in Japan. I mean, they did, but I'm sure. But we do not know how many chits. We have to get into. By the way, Aiki, get it right. I do not know. Tenra Bansho Zero is like a play or story that everyone participates in. The goal is to create a fun story. The GM is a player who has additional powers and abilities. They should stick to the rules as much as possible. And they should try their hardest to apply the rules impartially. If the GM makes a mistake, they should apologize and use the correct rule. This is the most Japanese thing I've seen. If the GM makes a mistake, they should apologize immediately and then use the correct rule from that point on. Don't try to rewind time. Just try to apply it going forward. Think of it like a referee's call in a sports game. All right, so the GM can make rules changes. They can decide how to use rules. They can cancel the effect of a player's action, and they can decide the actions of the rest of the world. So nothing big, just they can change the rules. They can decide when to use the rules. They can nullify a player's decisions, and they decide what everything else in the world does. So, KC, I was led to believe that we were still in Mech Week, and this game did purport to have Mech in it. I don't know where we are or what's happening anymore. Tenra Bansho Zero has no winners or losers. However, if for the players to have goals to work, if the players don't have any goals to work for, they won't be able to play the game well. We've gone ahead to set victory conditions for the game, both for the players and for the GM. The more of the conditions you fulfill, the closer you are to victory. The GM victory conditions. 1. You help the players have as much fun as humanly possible. 2. You help bring the characters to life in a way that the players say, I want to play this character again. 3. The players tell you the session was interesting and enjoyable. 4. You helped each of the players take the stage and show off or express themselves. 5. The players thank you for your efforts in doing everything above. 6. You helped create an interesting story. If the GM has filled more than half of the above, then the GM has achieved victory. She can go ahead and tell others that they have successfully mastered Tenra. But don't quit just because you're ahead. Try to do better next time. If you suffer a defeat, refocus and don't give up and try again later. The players. 1, you had fun over the course of the session. 2, you helped the other players have as much fun as you had. 3, you get the GM to say, that was cool, or that was great. 4, you were able to encourage the other players and keep them involved. 5, you took the opportunity to show off and express yourself. And 6, you helped create an interesting story. If you have filled more than half of those, you have achieved victory. And that's more than half. It means you need to get 4. The game uses 6-sided dice. Players will roll with 1 attribute and 1 skill. You will see things like make a spirit roll power roll or make a agility melee weapon. We round up fractions. Concept. In sections of text labeled concept, we explain the hidden meaning behind rules. All right, cool. Let's see here. We will use indiscriminate male and female pronouns as the Japanese printed language has no regular use pronouns, and we have tried our best to convert it into English. The game is set in a fantasy analog of Japan during its Sengoku Warring States period. So there's no reason. Think of it more like an anime or manga-sized fantasy world where women and men can and often do trade gender roles and break cultural, caste, and gender stereotypes. All right. So we've gone through that. There is another version of you, a you that exists in the world of Tenra. Here, you will take form. All right. So big Ikisai vibes or whatever. All right. First, we have to. There's a lot of text in this game. Whew, there is a lot of text. Let's see here. Basically, the GM is either going to use a pre-written scenario or a scenario outline or from scratch. When choosing characters, here are some things that you have to consider. Does the GM require that certain characters are chosen? What kind of character do you want to play? Will it work well with other characters? In short, play what you want to play, share your other ideas. The final decision rests with you. Ludo says, the game assumes that you will use pre-gens, at least for your first game. Yes. If you're new, don't pick something like a shinobi or an onmyoji, as they have magic or special abilities that can make things complicated. So, yeah. All right. So our character has a name, a gender, an age, a society, a social class, a character image. For your first game, it is recommended that you keep the fates for your characters as is, but eventually you can change them. There's also rules for character creation from scratch. There is a lot of text here. Let's see. We've got the first step is to skim the archetype section and look at the archetypes that appeal to you. If you want a specialized character like a samurai, a kongoki, an onmyoji, an analidist, oni, or the like, you want to first pick the archetype that will give you those special abilities. If you want to play a character with magical powers, specialist abilities, or unusual equipment, it's necessary to select an archetype that provides those abilities. Okay. You can combine multiple archetype packages to create unique characters. All right. Each archetype you choose has an associated karma cost. When you calculate the total karma for your chosen archetypes, the total for your starting character must be less than 108. Of course. You are free to choose as many packages you want as long as your combined karma total does not exceed 108. However, you probably don't want to build your character with too much starting karma, as you won't have much room to spend ki during the game. A good place is between 50 to 90. If it's less than 50, you may have a hard time accomplishing your goals. More than 90, and you will find yourself with a powerful starting character, but one who is very close to becoming an evil NPC and Ashura. So if I'm reading this right, the more powerful your starting character is, the higher your karma is. As you play the game and you role play well, you're going to get Aiki, which will get converted into Ki, which you will spend and accumulate more of this karma until you get to 108, at which point your character becomes an evil demon or an evil NPC and a Shura, and you stop playing them. That is how I understand this. I could be wrong, but from everything I've been led to believe, that is the case. So starting characters have a trade-off that you will see in play. You can choose to start off with a potentially powerful well, I hope there's a way to lower your karma. Otherwise, that would be problematic since you would be locked into becoming evil. But yes, Ikemos, it looks like you buy your character with evil points. Well, not evil. Karma is a little bit more complicated than that, right? But yes. You could choose to start off with a potentially powerful character with a high karma cost, like 100 or above. You can also choose to start off with a potentially weak character with a starting karma of around 50. The difference is that the high karma character will always be walking the line of good versus evil and will not be able to perform as many wild feats using ki points. However, the character with lower starting karma may not have as many nifty abilities, but she will be able to spend ki wildly and do incredible things without having to worry about consequence. For new characters, we suggest somewhere between 60 to 90. Hold on a sec. How much karma are you starting with? All right. All right, you're making a character for Tenra Bansho 0, and you have no idea what you're doing, but the GM just told you that if you go above 108, your character becomes an evil NPC demon. However, you'll be more powerful. So, got to vote. You know, I'm a bit of an anime supervillain myself. Some of the character archetypes have something called attribute costs, which we'll explain. But it means that you will have a minus when it comes to spreading a number of points, usually 40 amongst your starting attributes, okay? So some of the archetypes can penalize your stats. Archetypes list skills that you receive and the level at which they are set. An archetype might list movement 3, and that means you will have 3 dots of the movement skill. If you pick multiple archetype packages with the same skill, it's an overlapping skill, and you can change them to another basic skill. Okay. But at this time, you are not able to increase the level of any of these stack skills. That is, you cannot add them together. So if you get one archetype gives you skill at 2, another archetype gives you a skill at 3, you don't get it at 5. Hey, look at that. If you have melee weapons 2 and melee weapons 3, you can keep melee weapons 3 and pick another skill set at 2. You do not get melee weapons 5. Some archetypes are impossible to combine together. And you can spend or burn your attribute points and gain either 1 skill ranked at 3, advanced, or 2 skills ranked at 2. And you can only do this with general skills, not specialist skills. And all right, that sounds right. Soul gem and custom weapons. If you want to start the game with a soul gem weapon, please look at the weapons section in the appendix. If you plan to take part in a fierce battle, soul gem weapons are very useful in the hand of seasoned warriors. Of course they are. I like how it's saying this so matter-of-factly, like as if I'm supposed to know what a soul gem weapon is. Like they make it sound like it's just like, oh yeah, of course. I mean, if it's a soul gem weapon. It costs 5 points of karma to purchase each soul gem weapon. The weapon comes fully loaded with its capacity in soul gems. That is to say, a soul gem katana with a capacity of 6 soul gems starts out fully loaded with its 6 soul gems. To purchase additional soul gems for later use, it costs 1 additional karma point for every 5 soul gems. Some players may want to create customized weapons for their characters. Soul gem swords or rifles with a higher rate of fire, or perhaps an unusually wicked-looking weapon that was inspired by some manga, anime, or video game. By the way, three things in a row that I do not like. Manga, anime, and video games. If so, you can use the weapon creation rules in the weapons list appendix to create your own custom weapons. Shout out Fabula Ultima. All right. Of course, Jess. Isn't that what experience points are? I played Onimusha for the PlayStation 1, 2, right? I remember killing enemies and absorbing their souls. In TBZ, all player characters have 7 attributes: body, agility, senses, knowledge, spirit, empathy, and station. When you try to complete actions in this game, the attributes represent the number of dice that you will pick up and roll for each attribute. No bulk. There's body, but not bulk, unfortunately. Body, agility, senses, knowledge, spirit, empathy, and station. All right. 1 to 3 is normal. 4 to 6 is normal for a PC. 7 to 8 is excellent/high. And 9 is supreme. You have 40 points to spread amongst your 7 attributes. Make sure that you take into account any penalties that you may have gotten from your character archetypes. The lowest is 1. The highest is 10. However, it's best to try to keep your attributes to at least 3 or higher. That way you will be rolling at least 3 dice for any given action. Spend all of your 40 points. Do not leave any points unspent, as you cannot use them after character creation. Some of the archetypes will choose for you. Your character will indicate. Some of the archetypes you choose will indicate if there are attributes that you should focus on more than others and give you some recommendations. Others will require a minimum station requirement. I'm sure, probably hard to be a samurai with a low station, I would imagine, considering that this represents your social standing and social class. I'm guessing, unless you're a Ronin, that is a possibility. And I'm led to believe that in anime, right? Aren't they all Ronin? Because Ronin are so cool with a Kewl. All right. Let's see here. Oh, we got sub attributes: vitalities, soul, and wounds. The vitality represents a character's physical durability. You can think of it as hit points. These decrease as you take damage in the fight. When they reach 0, you pass out but do not die. The maximum number of vitality is body plus spirit. Soul is your force of will and functions like magic points, or MP, in popular console or online role-playing games. Soul points decrease as you use magic and other abilities such as ninjutsu or Buddhist magic. When it reaches 0, you also fall unconscious. It is equal to the total of 2 times the total number of knowledge and spirit. So knowledge plus spirit combined times 2. Wounds and the wound track. The wound track is a way to represent serious injuries in a way that encourages role-playing. Aside from critical and dead, there is no punishment for stacking up wounds. To see how these work in more detail, refer to the combat section. You calculate your wound track following the method below. Remember to round up fractions. It is on your character sheet for each injury value. Count the number of boxes you would need to leave open and blacken out the boxes left in pencil. But anyways, so you have, if your body was 6, you would have 6 light wounds boxes. You would have 3 heavy wounds boxes. You would have 1.5, round up to 2, critical boxes, and 1 dead box, if our body, say, was 6. And by the way, I think they said, with the exception of critical and dead, only critical and dead have a mechanical influence. Light and heavy are just, you know, for funsies, right? To note. Like something happened in the fiction and we can play to that. We can describe that. We can role play differently. But it doesn't do anything. Equipment and money depends on your station score. In the olden days of historic Japan, only true mononofu, or samurai, or vassal warriors were allowed to carry a katana or other weapons. Anyone else without the correct rank was caught with a katana, was severely punished or executed. There's no information about making any extra equipment that you think you might need. You can go ahead and do this. As regards with the money, there are really no definite rules for how much you start off with. In a pinch, you have station times 500 mon worth of money to mess around with. All right. Starting fates. When you choose your character's archetypes, you'll note that they have fates set into them. Write those fates onto your character sheets. For starting characters, you are initially limited to just 2 fates. If you choose 3 or more archetypes, please just pick 2 of the fates that you would like from your collection of archetypes and write them on your character sheet. One fate will be rated at 3 and another fate will be rated at 2. You can switch between them. Some characters have special abilities and other special powers. Agents of the Shinto priesthood, Yorai, armor riders, and some of the other archetypes start off with a Mikyo soul mirror and the ability to enter or manipulate the realm of reflection. By using objects called a soul cord, you can interface with the reflection. I'm going to kind of skip this. I don't know why they're describing it here, but they are. Let's see here. Something. A lot of interest. There's a whole separate subsection for your mirror, believe here, along with the Kongoki overdrive ability and the Annelid implantation and Oni resonance and samurai ability. So basically, every archetype has its own kind of system here. Shinobi, Kijin, Kugutsu, Butterfly Dream. All right. So let's use an example here. So we're going to work with the group and GM to choose a general character type, pick our attributes, pick our archetypes, divide up our attributes, work out our skills, choose our weapons, calculate our karma, and choose and record our fates. So our GM in this scenario is going to be running a game about mercenaries. All character types are welcome, but anything that works well as a mercenary would be welcome. Thinking a little bit, you decide to make an armor hunter, an ex-armor rider who has now decided... Okay. My mouse broke. What's going on? Okay, that was weird. All character types are welcome. Okay, bye-bye. You think to decide to make an armor hunter. An ex-armor rider who now has dedicated her life to single-handedly toppling those mechanical monsters. The GM and other players give a thumbs up and offer a suggestion. Oh, perhaps you are the daughter of a feudal lord. Did you turn your back on your family after you stopped being an armor rider? All right. I'm guessing armor is a mech. All right. After flipping through the archetypes, a few fitting archetypes stand out. Armor hunter is a given. This character used to be an armor pilot, so former armor rider looks like a fitting archetype. Perhaps the character's Yoroi armor was destroyed in a rout, and nowadays, because of her experience and background, she makes a living hunting the very armors that she used to pilot. Finally, the mercenary archetype looks useful, so we'll add that one into the mix. We can make an interesting character with these 3 archetypes, so we'll use them for now. So, former armor rider comes in at a karma cost of 10, armor hunter 30, and mercenary 30. So we're starting with 30 karma cost and 1 attribute cost. Not too low, not too high. Remember, 60 to 90 is ideal. Now we have 40 attribute points. However, because of the 1 attribute point cost, we only have 39. So we have to divide it. Looking at the archetypes we have chosen, what is going on with my mouse? Oh, okay. I saw what's going on. It's actually going on with my keyboard. Looking at our 3 archetypes that we have chosen, they recommend having a decent body, agility, and senses. Probably makes sense for us to have a 6 or more. It also appears that we will start out with the fearsome armor hunting weapon called Zax 8, a huge modified Yorai short sword. This weapon requires a starting station of 4, so we'll have a 4 or more in station as well. We have to divide up 39 points, and we end up going with 7 body, 8 agility, 6 senses, 3 knowledge, 5 spirit, 6 empathy, 4 station, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. After writing these above, we can calculate our sub-attributes. Vitality is body plus spirit, so that's 12. Soul is knowledge plus spirit times 2 equals 16. Spirit OP. And then because of our body score of 7, we have 7 body boxes of light wounds. We have 3.5 rounded up to 4 heavy wounds, 2 critical wounds, and 1 dead box. Now we calculate our skills. Looking at our archetypes, we see that they provide us with a number of skills: interface, etiquette, art of rule, melee weapons, marksman, informations, melee weapons again. It looks like we have 2 counts of melee weapons. So we'll keep melee weapons 4 from our armor hunter and instead reassign the melee score of 3 to another skill. We'll also choose the general skill notice, which is a 1 for all characters, and turn it into notice 3. And then we choose our weapons. Because we picked the armor hunter, we start off with a Zact 8 Yoroi killer sword. After checking with the GM, we'll add a simple light katana. It's mostly going to be for show or for backup weapon. The Zact 8 comes fully equipped with 8 soul gems at no cost, but it doesn't have any extra ammo. We'll take 15 extra soul gems in case we get into a difficult battle. Soul gems cost 1 karma for 5, which means we'll have to increase our starting karma by 3. It's a small price to pay to be able to power up one of the most dangerous weapons in the game. All right. So we started with 70. We added 3 from our extra soul gems, and our starting karma is 73. Now we choose and record our starting fates. This is one of the most exciting steps of character creation process. We are going to decide what the character cares about at the beginning of the game. As we'll see, these fates will change over time as the story progresses. However, for now, we will look at the 3 archetypes we have chosen and choose the 2 fates which appeal to us most. Looking over the 3 fates, these seem to be interesting to us, so we'll write them down. We'll put in 3 dots for one of them and 2 dots for another one. One is going to be an emotion fate, hatred of Yorai armors, 3. And another emotion, which is attracted to strength, 2. The current fate cost of these fates is 10 points. A fate rated 3 costs 10. A fate rated 2 costs nothing, which is always the same for starting characters. We'll write 10 under your fate costs, which are part of the character sheet, which lists the fates. Then we can write all this down on our character sheet. Now, unfortunately, they did not give me a character sheet with this drive-through RPG download. So let's see if we can find one. All right, here we go. So here is our character sheet. So we've got our name, age, sex, concept, what archetypes we have, what our current karma is, what our current attribute costs are. Here is where we record our fates, noting that 2 dots is 0, 3 dots is 10, 4 dots is 30, 5 dots is 70. Total fate cost cannot exceed our total karma. Here is where we track our karma. Here is where we track our ki, which we don't know what it does yet, but we know it's like our super soul yell. Here's our vitality box, our soul box. And then here are all the skills in the game broken up into their requisite attributes. And in this case, this is all the ones that are marked with a dot are are general skills, which is why they always start with 1 dot. So anything which is basically an unspecialized skill starts with 1 dot. So we've got maybe like 20 skills. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. We've got a small, we have our section for wounds. Again, light wounds, heavy wounds, critical wounds, dead. A character sketch, a small section for weapons, and a very small section for our possessions. Playthrough Pulse says the font is out of this world. The game is the hyper Asian RPG, and no expenses were spared. All right, so that's it. That's the character sheet. I mean, it seems kind of simple, right? I mean, maybe like obviously the archetypes could obviously be a lot more complicated, but in terms of like, I mean, I don't know why I would, why am I going to choose, knowledge of Shinto over Buddhist magic or pillow arts? I don't know, but fundamentally it doesn't seem like it's that complicated of a character creation process. I mean, famous last words. But we'll see. Also, I mean, it's a D6 system, so I mean, what are we looking for? 4, 5s, and 6s? Like a burning wheel. Finishing touches. Well, we get a name. We write down our soul gems. We write down some mannerisms. We answer some questions. Role-playing stuff, fluffy bullshit time stuff. Skin color, eye color, lifestyle, etc., etc. Here's an example character. So here's Kiri or Kyrie, an older teen female. There we go. All right, so that's how you make a character. And again, the game that would the game recommends that you start with a pre-gen. I could see why, there's a lot of archetypes potentially to look through. But, if you know the archetypes and you're somewhat comfortable with them, I think it could be kind of a cool process to figure this out. All right. So how does this game work? When you want to do something, you're running through the battlefield. Swords are clashing all around you. Bullets are whizzing past, and the screams of the fallen are deafening. Can you make it through without being hit or phased? This is the kind of thing that the resolution system behind 10 games of Tenra Bansho Zero helps determine. Barbar, thank you. Dots equal threshold. 2 dots equals success on a 1 and 2. Oh. Okay, cool. Got it. So if we have 6 dots, every dice is a success. Is that how I would read that? And the number of dice we roll is our attribute, right? Interesting. Cool. Thank you, Barbar. Oh, you don't think you can have 6 dots? You are correct. You can have 5 dots. So actually, it's the opposite, Beowulf. A 6 is always a failure. You know what this kind of reminds me of? It kind of reminds me of Warhammer, the new Warhammer, the Old World. Remember how Warhammer, the Old World, your attribute determines how many D10s you roll, and your skill determines what you have to roll, what value you have to roll under in order to succeed or to have it count as a success. So like if your strength is 5, you're going to roll 5d10. And if your skill in melee weapons is a 6, then 6 or less on a d10 is a success. And we like that system. I thought that system was cool. So yeah, I kind of give this a +1. I like that system. I thought it was very clever and intuitive. It made skills feel important, but having a high skill but a low attribute would kind of fuck you, right? Whereas in like, I mean, it's different, right? Like having a high attribute but a low skill gives you a chance to get a lot of successes. But if you are really skilled but have a poor attribute, you might always get 1 success, but you're unlikely to get, right, like 7 successes or 8 successes because you're just not rolling that many dice. So there's a really interesting kind of component there. So I like that in the I like that in the old world game. So I use D10s instead of D6s, but it's the same basic concept. So I actually like that. Yeah, I agree. It's very simple. Okay. We use, however, in role-playing games, the players often do not know if their characters will succeed. I'm sorry. In media like dramas, movies, books, anime, and manga, the characters engage in duels of wits, challenges of the mind, physical struggles. In those media, the outcome is pre-decided and written by the author. The fate entirely left up to the director. However, in role-playing games, we do not know if the characters will succeed at a difficult challenge or not. We use cards or dice or other randomizing tools to help determine whether the character succeeds or not, and then watch as the story develops based on those results. Success leads to the next step in the scenario, and failure also leads to progress through interesting and dynamic following up challenges. Having a game system in place of a single author amplifies the thrill of conflict. I could not say it better myself, but Luke Crane was involved at some level, so I assume that's why. So when the characters come across a story, we use the following resolution system. 1, the GM might just decide you succeed automatically or you fail automatically. 2, the GM then decides, if that's not the case, that what skill should be used. And then 3, the GM decides what attribute should be used with the skill. I will say, as a quick tangent, that I actually like this system, except I prefer Legend of the Five Rings, where the GM sets the skill and the player chooses the attribute, because in Legend of the Five Rings, right, attribute is approach. And so I love that the GM gets to decide the skill, but the player gets to decide how they're approaching it, right? The GM says, well, I've listened to what you've described your action is, and I've decided that that is an influence action, or I've decided that is a courtesy action, or I have decided that that is a athletics action, or whatever. And then you say, okay, but I am going to approach it in this fashion. And I think that's really cool. It's a great question, Beowulf. I don't know. Then the difficulty number of the challenge is decided. Then the dice are rolled. Then the player counts successes, and then the outcome is determined. Couple of summary here. Attribute, this is how many D6 you roll. And by the way, I am a big fan of these very 1-to-1 ratios, right? Where you go, hey, my attribute is 5, so I roll 5 dice. I think that is the most sensible, logical, most I think it's so user-friendly, right? Even back in the day, which I was not a huge fan of White Wolf, when they were like, well, you have this many dots, so you roll that many D10s. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Skill level, this controls the number or less that you need to get as a success. 0 means that, so if you have that's why the general skills all start with 1 dot, because you could always succeed. But if it's a specialist skill and you've no dots in it, you can't roll less than a 0 or 0 or less than a D6, so you'll always fail. The number, so that's the successes is the number of D6s that you roll that equal less than your value. The number of successes you need to clear a goal is the difficulty or challenge rating. Scoring equal or more means that you have succeeded. So, okay, makes sense. This is all like, why should we roll? When should we roll? Basic stuff here. Awesome. Should, rule of cool, all that stuff. In other words, don't even pick up the dice if the result of failure or success would simply stop the game or bring a result that isn't interesting or fun for anyone. Okay. The GM decides which skill is applicable. For assistance, please read the skill descriptions, but just choose an appropriate one. In many cases, 2 skills may seem relevant, in which case, simply let the player choose the higher of 2 skills. Respect. The GM has final say on what skill is applicable to the situation. And again, we can kind of see here that 1 is you're basically unskilled, 2 skilled, 3 advanced, 4 master, 5 supreme. A quick way to remember this is with the simple abbreviation acronym of NewSams, which is a nonsense word. So how does that help anyone remember this? Okay. After just choosing a skill, the next step is to choose the best attribute that fits. On the character sheet, the skills are grouped under their recommended attribute. Sneak is under agility, information is under knowledge. This is simply a good default attribute to choose. And here we have a graphic of someone rolling a skill. To answer your question, Beowulf, normally you only need a single die to be a success to succeed in an action. So it looks like the default DC is 1. A couple of things here. Hey, what's up, Mind Blown? Lancer Battle Group or Salvage Union are not on the horizon. Mind blown. No one brought them up. I mean, my understanding is Lancer Battle Group is a space game. So there's that. Salvage Union was mentioned, but it didn't get brought up. Is this kind of like PBTA? So far, nothing. No, this is not like PBTA at all. It's actually just like a normal D&D game. You roll the dice. Did you succeed? Yes. Did you fail? Yes. Then move on with your life. Okay. The challenge rating is between 1 and 6. Most of the time, getting 1 success is all that is needed. But if the task is dramatically harder or challenging or requires more risk to pull off, you can raise the DC. The GM should reveal to the player how many successes are needed before the dice are rolled. This should not be kept hidden from the player. This helps them understand how challenging the task is, as well as if they want to spend additional resources to bring this in. I will give them a strong for that one. Fun fact, in Legend of the Five Rings, if you as the game master want to keep the DC hidden, like because maybe the players wouldn't actually know what the difficulty is because it's like a secret force, you have to give them a void point. Like you actually have to give them basically you have to give them a hero point in Legend of the Five Rings if you want to, on one skill check, if you don't tell them what the DC is. One of my biggest pet peeves in D20 games is when the GM asks for a check and doesn't tell you what the DC is. I hate that. I highly recommend you stop doing that right away. Tell your players the DC. It's okay. It'll be okay. 6 is basically impossible. 1 is basically super routine. And then we roll the dice. And then we count the successes, which again is going to be less than our thing. Then we determine what happens. The GM is the one who describes what happens on the results. Alternatively, they could ask for players happen, right? How do you want to do this, right? That's the Matt Mercer thing. Or you fail, what happened? What a great way to frame. I mean, this is nothing new, by the way, but people always talk about how like the GMs, shit on players when they fail. And so it's like, hey, the dice said that you failed. We have to respect that. But put it in the player's case. Hey, player, what happened? Why did you fail? Was it something in the situation, something you did? Why don't you tell me? Because you're not going to have your character looking like an ass and slipping on a banana peel unless you think that's funny and you want to go with that, in which case I respect that. But putting, we always think about putting success in the player's hands. But I think putting failure in the player's hand is actually a little bit more empowering because it softens the blow, right? It kind of takes some of the sting out of it. All right. A lot of concept. Why a game? Why use a game system? Okay, I'm going to read this just because, you know what? If you're going to give me a sidebar like that in a game, I am going to take into it here. For many people used to online chat-based role-playing games where people make up results on the fly, or computer-based role-playing games where the results are decided by a computer, it's probably a good idea to understand why this game uses dice and challenge ratings and the like. First, not knowing the outcome of a conflict, where both winning and losing could result in interesting results, is entertaining. Second, it's a way for tasks to have their outcome decided in a non-arbitrary way. Sure, the GM does decide a difficulty rating, but from that point on, it's up to the player whether they succeed or fail. Third, it interjects some chaos into play, Watch as skilled people fail or unskilled people succeed, and decide how that came to be. This chaos creates some interesting twists. The GM is given a lot of power in this game. She decides the difficulty of tasks, where the story turns and leads after the dice hit the table. The GM has to decide what to do when a task or a conflict isn't really covered by the rules. Overall, the GM should strive to remain fair and balanced. They shouldn't strive simply to shut the players down if they try new things by using the rules as a wall. Rather, they should use the rules to support the characters in the characters' acts as the story develops. The Zero System chapter gives more tips on how to run a fair and exciting game of Tenra Bansho Zero. That is a very interesting sidebar, Jess. And I think, for my money, this is why I don't like resolving things in role-playing games through, conversation or, the like. Because part of the reason is I like not knowing the outcome of a conflict. Number two, I like having tasks decided in a non-arbitrary way. And three, I like for chaos to come into play. We talk about fortune systems, karmic systems, and drama systems, and I like fortune systems because I like the chaos, the non-arbitrariness, and I like the fun, the gamble, the sweat, as we say when we go to Vegas. We like the thrill of the unknown, and dice and cards or whatever do that. So all three of these are basically the reasons why, whether it's a combat or an intrigue or an exploration or pretty much almost anything, I like to lean into dice rolls and mechanics and mechanical systems that use random determinate outcomes, because these are I like these things. That doesn't quash creativity, rather just the opposite. I think it demands the players and the GM to have to roll with these punches. And I think that creates for a more, PBTA would call it a feral experience. And I'm here for a feral experience. I don't want something that is tame and predictable and is decided by what makes the most sense. I'm not here for that. I'm not here for what makes the most sense, or that should just happen. All right. Interestingly, by the way, if you're using an action against a PC or an NPC, the difficulty number to beat is the number of successes the opponent rolls. So it's opposed actions. So I roll my thing, I get 4 successes. Okay, so the DC is 4. Whoever has more successes wins. But what do we do in a tie? In that case, you just roll again. That's kind of a a shitty way to resolve that, but all right. This is even great, by the way, because they say it's time for opposed actions, and they're like, I got 4, and he goes, remember, none of the conditions changes. The re-rolls, everything stays the same. And they're both like, yeah. And then they're like, 4 successes. Me too. This is like my worst nightmare as a GM. It's like, we're gonna have this intense roll off and everybody just keeps rolling the same numbers. Now, what if I add key eye to the dice to the roll? Do I have to spend more key eye on a re-roll? Nope. You keep rolling the key roll. Nothing changes. Even though you re-roll the dice, time does not pass. It's like the game got paused. And then in the background, it's like 4 again. Me too. I love the idea that they're just, doing this. So Jess says, yeah, this sidebar feels so much more helpful to this game than the boilerplate, what is a role-playing game? Yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to just give it to the player with, I don't know, if higher skill or higher stat. I don't know. It's kind of interesting, Beowulf. I'm not sure. Maybe we can come up with something even more arbitrary. Whoever has the higher skill plus stat. There we go. All right. So that's pretty basic. I'm not really worried about some of these really nitty-gritty rules, like how you repair broken equipment and stuff like that. Hey, by the way, guys, we've made it through 10% of the game rules. So gunpowder weapons require ammunition, just like soul gems are required. Soul weapons require soul gems for ammunition. let's see here. Okay, here we go. This is meta currency 101, right? Because you had to buy for your cool equipment. But during the adventure, if you find really cool equipment, like a cache of hundreds of soul gems or a new gem blade, you can use it. But to keep this equipment from one act to the next, you have to spend the equipment cost on the chart below. If you don't spend the equipment cost of the newly found equipment by the last act of the scenario, then you lose that equipment. So basically, if you find cool equipment, you have to pay for it. All right. So we're not going to go through every single skill, but needless to say, they've got a breakdown here of every skill and how that skill might be used with the other stats. Beowulf Reborn says, I don't like that. Why? And then Ludo says, it's very rare that you'd even play the same characters after a scenario anyways. So there you go. It mostly doesn't matter because you're not going to play the character again. But it shows how like you might use unarmed combat, which is default under body, but it might be a senses roll or a knowledge roll or a spirit roll, right? Like unarmed combat, spirit, huh? You don't need the, what is it called? The detector. I can't remember the name of the detector from Dragon Ball Z, right? Where you can just sense their power level. Power meter, is that what it's called? Right? You make a unarmed combat spirit check to like determine their power level without having a power reader or whatever. So here is a very specialized skill of Worm Charm. Scouter. Damn it. Movement, all this other stuff, all sorts of skills. I'm curious what Pillow Arts is. Pillow Arts, this skill covers seduction to one using one's sexual or sensual appeal to get things done. All right. Monster Samurai Hearts, here we go. Oh, Davi, thank you for sending out a gifted membership. I appreciate you. I don't know if you meant to do a gift, but you did, and Jess got it. So welcome, Jess, to the adventure. I don't know if Davi meant to do that as a gift, but if you did, I think that was very nice of you, Davi. I appreciate you. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Davi. Appreciate it. And you know what? I love that it went to Jess. That's very appropriate. Beowulf says, Samurai Hearts, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. I love it. Okay. Got it. Sick. Let's see here. So that's all the skills. Okay, here we go. So this is the first thing that we wanted to look at. And by the way, this is a very lengthy book. So we're going to look at the karma system because the people who know better said to look at it. And we're going to look at the zero system because the people who know better said to look at it. But what we're not going to look at is all the archetypes. I'm sorry. We're not going to get into, everything that a samurai or yes, we're not going to get into the armor section, which is their mech stuff. I mean, you know what? If we have time, we'll look at the armor section just because it is mech week and I respect that. But I really just wanted to focus on how this game works. I will say, I hate this, but I love it. Like so far, I actually think the archetype system sounds cool. I'm not quite sure how the whole karma point becoming an Ashura, losing your character to evil thing exactly works out in the fiction, but or in the game, it's fine. But the skill system I love. I think that's very straightforward, to the point, simple, easy. It said having a 10 is like end game. So the most dice you're ever going to roll is 10d6. But most of the time, you're probably going to be rolling between 3 to 7 d6. I think that's fine. And based on what skill you have, I have 4 dots. Cool. 4s or less are a success. It seems pretty simple and straightforward to me. And then if it's an opposed roll, whoever got more successes. So simple, easy. All right. The karma system. Within the game of Tenra Bansho Zero is a subset of rules which focuses on the psychological condition of your character. This is the karma system. The karma system is the backbone of this game. While these rules are an important part of playing the game, they are fuzzy rules that do not rely on hard numbers and math. For those of you familiar with role-playing games, you understand that the actual act or role play is not something that could be quantified in a number or rolled on a dice. The karma system attempts to bridge the gap between qualitative role-playing and quantitative character change. Wait a second. Is the karma system designed to turn FBT into mechanical role-playing? It sounds like a freaking Luke Crane game already. Basically, by the way, you know, to anyone who watched Torchbearer, you should know that Torchbearer does this. Burning Wheel does this, right? With belief, with goals, right? With Fate or Artha and what's the other one in Torchbearer? A Fate point and a holy crap, what's the other point? A Persona point. Anyways, the karma system attempts to bridge the gap between qualitative role-playing, right? That is to say, FBT, and quantitative character change. That is to say, mechanics. Ludo says, it even has all the pretentious names for a thing like a... Oh, yes. We love the pretentious names. It would not be a Burning Wheel HQ game if it didn't have pretentious names. All right. The karma system is made up of 4 interlinked concepts. Ki, Aiki, karma, and fate. Let's look at each of these in detail. Ki is synonymous with your character's potential power. The more Ki character has, the more influence they can exert upon the rule. Ki is represented by a pool of points. Ki is sometimes called Ki points. This comes from fighting spirit. It's the martial arts yell that they scream before they punch through a wall or whatever. In the game, Ki represents your force of will and how you exert yourself upon the world. If the concept of Ki is hard to remember at first, think of it as focus. Ki has 2 roles in this game. The first is explosive power, the ability to do mythic or heroic deeds. Many tabletop games have a pool of points similar to this. They are sometimes called hero points or action points or fate points. Fair. The second role of Ki, albeit a lesser used one, is character development. Just like XP in many tabletop and console games, Ki can also be used to raise your attributes, raise your skills, and gain new abilities and new equipment. Ki starts at 0, but there is no upper limit. When Ki is spent, it turns into karma during intermissions. Ki must be recorded carefully. Not only the Ki pool that you have, but every point spent. It sounds a lot like Fate and Artha and Persona. Aiki is the player currency of this game, a reward for good role-playing. When the players receive this reward, it is passed to them in the form of what are called Aiki chits. Aiki chits can be pieces of paper, coins, or other physical tactile counters. They are given to players as a reward for excellent role-playing. So a little sidebar about karma, which a lot of people talk about, karma being a thing. It's like doing good things leads to good karma and doing bad things leads to bad karma. Right? No, that's Hinduism. In Buddhism, all karma is bad, right? All karma is karma and all karma is bad, right? Karma is attachment. And as long as you have karma, you are basically bound to the cosmic rebirth cycle. Now, to be fair, I didn't fully understand this concept myself until I got into Legend of the Five Rings. But karma represents being, tied to the world. Eventually, as karma amasses, they are tied to the cosmic cycle of life and rebirth. Karma is such a burden that the more you gain, the more perverse your actions and emotions become. You can start to love or something so much that you would destroy it or everything around it in order to preserve it. You can love your kingdom and become so attached to it that you make brutal war on your peaceful neighbors in order to keep your kingdom safe from the threat you perceive. You might care for your wife or husband so much that you might want to protect them from the influences of every other person around them, etc., etc. Emotions and emotional ties to the world are a very human thing. However, too much of a good thing leads to pain, as well as being trapped in the cosmic cycle of rebirth, of which the escape from which is the goal of Buddhism. So there you go. Caring is bad. Attachment is bad. So yeah. So we give people praise for Aiki. They are turned into ki points through what are called fate rolls. Aiki can also be spent to gain new fates. Finally, Aiki can be spent as the same way as ki points, although they do not generate karma. Karma is the sound of your soul tearing itself apart. It is the act of destroying the world because you cannot keep your emotions in check. It is a level between 1 to 108. If it goes below 0 or above 108, you are an NPC. Right? It's like humanity from Vampire. Fates are your goals, your beliefs, and your desires. They represent an event that had some sort of impact on your heart. This impact may have been from the past or developed from living or perhaps from a shame. Each fate has a type and an ability, 1 to 5. The higher the fate, the more you feel about that fate. Fates are used to convert Aiki chits to ki points, as well as showing the psychological state of the character, essentially what they care about and how much they care about it, right? It's quantifying what your character cares about in numerical form. Destiny is a particular special type of fate, which is given to the game by the game master to the player during the 0 act, the start of the game. It represents the character's goal for this story. By pursuing their destiny, the character will progress through this scenario or adventure. They should take special note of this fate and are encouraged to make use of it throughout the game. Mechanically, a destiny is the same as a fate. It's just a destiny is given to you by the GM. This is your role in the scenario. You know what this reminds me of? Did anybody see Mike Underwood's live stream about how he's doing adventures in Daggerheart scenarios? Did anybody catch that? It was this idea, because there's a lot of like confusion about like how do you do something like this? How do you do like a Daggerheart adventure? And what he did is he basically has generic hats. I mean, I call them hats, but they're roles. And the idea is that when the adventure starts, like players pick up these roles so that they're tied into the adventure to begin with. You could think of them as hooks, but it might be like one of you is from this village, right? So it's kind of relying on like dynamic update or a dynamic updating, right, of your character, because that has never been previously established. But it's very interesting. Okay. Aiki chits are the core of the economy in this game. You need to, in order to understand this, you need to know a little bit about kabuki theater, which is what this game is trying to emulate. So not only is this game Hyper Japan RPG, it's also an emulation to kabuki theater. Kabuki theater is similar to Western theater, but there are a few poignant distances. The makeup, the music, and the stage tricks aside, the biggest distinction is the role of the audience. In Western theater, the audience stays silent. In kabuki theater, the audience participates. They yell and holler during action scenes or when they strike a classic pose. When the actor delivers one of the famous lines, the audience goes nuts. The serious kabuki fan will scream out to the actual actor, "Way to go, Ichikawa! You tell him, Nakamura!" Even if the audience knows what's coming up next, and the kabuki enthusiast almost always does, when they act so shocked or surprised when something happens. Correct. This is distinct from role-playing, but it is emphasizing acting. This is very much going out of its way to say that we are trying to emulate theater. And theater is acting. Role-playing is not. I'm glad we're agreeing, Beowulf. So Like in this game, if you are not a good actor, you will not get the meta currency that you need to succeed. So if you're you remember how I was talking about how like I think role playing and the way that Critical Role and stuff like that fucks people over because it leads to these unrealistic expectations, and I don't think that's what a role playing game is even about. This game is what people think a role playing game is about. When people talk about like Dimension 20 and Critical Role and that being role playing, they are talking about this. And in this case, if you're not good at that, you won't get these Ike chits. So if you're like a quiet introverted character or a quiet introverted person, and you aren't going to make people stand up and cheer for you, and you're not going to deliver awesome, crazy, cool one-liners, and if you're not really good at like playing and bringing a lot of empathy and drama to your depictions of your character, chances are pretty good that people aren't going to give you your Ike chits unless they literally give you pity ones. I don't know if that is to be discouraged in this game, but pity points. But even then, everybody knows it's a pity point, so it's still kind of shitty. But yeah. So the purpose of doing that is so that not so that it's a good role-playing game. It's so that it replicates the feel of a kabuki theater. Right? In a sense, this has nothing to do with a role-playing game. This has everything with trying to make your game feel like a kabuki theater, right? So this is an emulationist mechanic. It is not a role-playing one in a sense. In fact, they even say the actor in the scenes entertains the other players, right? It's not about playing your character, and to that end, it's about being an actor. It's about playing, to the audience. It's about making everybody laugh and, do something that is cool and interesting and ad-lib lines and really ham up your fates. So each scene, the players will usually receive 2 to 3 or more chits, depending on how much they exert themselves and play up their role. And to be very clear, the role in this case is an actor role, right? I don't think role-playing, when people talk about like, oh, I got the part, I got the role, I'm playing the role, like an actor sense, that's not what role-playing means. So one way to do this is with the audience, which is where everybody can award that. Another option is have a scene judge where one player does this. You need about 15 to 20 per player. It's a soft rule. It's not really super mechanical, but it's the most important set of rules in the entire game. Make sure that all the players understand this well and hand out the players. Asking how many Ike chits should a player receive in the scene is a little bit like asking how much should I tip the waiter? The answer is it depends. As a good rule of thumb, you should try to be getting 2 to 3, but perhaps 4 to 5, or if you're bringing down the house. The default rule is everybody can hand it out. Now, what's interesting about this is in my game, this is totally not a rule, obviously in Pathfinder 2, but my like Smith will do this all the time. Like we'll be playing Pathfinder 2 and Smith will have his hero points and like, Bob will say something funny or Tim will do something awesome. And like, I might be like, before maybe I'm a little slow on the response, or maybe it's something that he just thought was funny. Smith will just grab one of his own hero points and give it to Bob, which is obviously not allowed by the rules, but Smith will be like, Bob, that was awesome. You deserve this. And he'll just give him a thing. I thought that was pretty sweet. As many as you want, Beowulf. It's a big pile. You need, like, if you have 5 players, you should have about 200, or sorry, if you have 5 players, you should have about 100 Ike chits. It's not like you have a set number. You just pull from the pool, I'm imagining. It doesn't really look like you have a limit. Yeah, there you go. Keep them, keep some of them near you, but, award the chits as you see fit. When you run out, there you go. 3. That's the answer. Keep 3 on hand. And then if you run out, or at the beginning of the next scene, pick up 3 more. So even if you run out, you just pick up 3 more. But or at the beginning of the next scene, remind yourself to pick up 3. Having three at a time helps keep the pace, making sure that the acting players in the scene don't receive too few or too many. But again, if you run out, you can literally just take more. Once all the players have played a bunch, you can just keep a large pile in the center of the table. They're only saying the 3 is to remind people that they are there for you to give them away. But if you know what you're doing, you can just have a big bowl in the center, which actually I think makes more sense, because that way you know that if you have them on your character sheet, it's because you earn them. Right. Players should keep their chits different from the ones that they are giving away, right? Keep in mind, don't forget to award them, right? It's easy to be so engaged with what's going on, you forget to award people. Remember, they want you to stop and be like, yeah, that was awesome, fuck yeah, and award points. I really got sucked into the dialogue. Here's a point. Yeah, switchback. I think it's really interesting. Well, again, this is saying that this is the most important system in the game. And it is also furthermore saying that the purpose of this mechanic is to emulate kabuki theater. That means, more so than anything, this game is a kabuki theater emulator, which is to sort of say it is a form of Japanese cultural theater, basically. And it really wants you to sort of play into those tropes and respond. I'm not super familiar with kabuki, but I was not aware that like people get so like, you know, the audience is so engaged. I was not aware that that was an element of kabuki theater. Okay. So, the players will obviously know their own fates, but it's important to learn about the fates and destinies of other player characters when they're on scene. Knowing them will help you, the audience, understand what nuances that player is aiming for in their roleplay. If you don't know what their fates are, you will not know if you should be rewarding them properly. So make sure that you familiarize yourself with the session log sheet so that you know what fates that character has. When you give Aiki chits to a player for role-playing their fates, call attention to which fate you are rewarding. Here, take a chit is fine, but, oh, that was a really interesting way that you played off of your fear of the divine wind. Here, take a chit. It will remind players why you are rewarding them for their good acting. You know, don't be a dick, but also don't be, you know, Monty Hall and give out too many. Talk about them in an intermission. You know, the system is pretty much impossible to game to your advantage. Any attempt to do so will be seen as cheesy and you won't get rewarded. You know, don't be a weasel, right? Don't worry about giving out too many chits. Too many is better than too few. Yada, yada, yada. This is scene judge. If you're not comfortable with players awarding them, you can give it to probably a player who knows what they're doing and award it or whatever. It's fine. Yada, yada. Okay. So what can we do with these things now that we have them? Because this is the primary meta currency of the game. They're using them is not nearly as complicated as how they're distributed. You can use them in 2 places, during a scene and during intermission. Players can spend an Aiki chit in order to use it as a ki point. 1 Aiki chit grants 1 point of ki for immediate use. It's usually a poor trade because Aiki chits can be used to make fate rolls to get far more points of ki. However, spending Aiki can be helpful in a pinch. The main benefit of using Aiki chits as ki points is that Aiki chits spent in this way do not add to the spent ki pool, so it doesn't increase karma. This is the only karma-free way to spend ki points. So if you want to be superpowered anime awesome, you have to spend ki points. If you need to, in a pinch, you can burn your role-playing points to be awesome in anime. And it's actually cool because you don't get karma for doing so. Another thing that you can do with Aiki points is bring another PC into the scene. This is a method most commonly used by the GM after the scene is underway in order to draw in other players into the scene. A GM or player gives a player a single Aiki chit, and in return, the receiving player jumps into the scene as their PC or as an NPC. Because remember, it is rare that every player will be in a scene. So this is basically like a way to say, like, I'm paying you to be an extra in this scene. Again, it's very theater based. In fact, if you're familiar, there's kind of rules like this in Fiasco, which is very much like a storytelling, like movie making game, right? It's designed to like generate Coen Brothers-esque experiences. You can use it to adjust the emotion matrix. When a player rolls on the emotion matrix, the GM can offer them Aiki chits to move up, down, left, right, one or more spaces. So I can bribe you to get to a more interesting emotion reactions. Another player can also offer their own Aiki chits to another player to guide their emotion matrix results. If you are the player and you want to move towards an emotion, you can spend your ki instead. During intermission, that's all during a scene. During an intermission, this is the most common use of Aiki chits. At the end of intermission, the player can exchange their Aiki chits for fate rolls. Each Aiki chit is traded in for one roll until all Aiki chits are spent and the player is left with a pool of ki. See below for how to make a fate roll. A player can make a fate roll during a scene or even during combat as an action. However, instead of using their highest fate, they make their roll against whichever fate is the most appropriate. Okay. Whenever it is time to gain new fates, a player can give themselves a new fate ranked at 2 for the cost of 1 Aiki chit. They can offer another player a new fate ranked at 2, in which case, if the player accepts, they will give the player an Aiki chit. Fate rolls are the most common use of these chits. During intermission, a player makes a roll using the PC's empathy as an attribute, and the fates rank in dots as the skill. This roll will result in a number of successes. Each single success becomes a ki point and recorded on your sheet. If the player has 8 Aiki chits, they can make 8 Aiki rolls in a row and gain a large pool of ki in the process. The player chooses whichever fate they want to use to make the roll. Of course, this means the player will use their highest ranked fate, usually the one with 3 or 4 dots. In this way, the character becomes stronger or gains more potential through the things that they care about. If the player doesn't have a single fate which applies to their character any longer, they should be encouraged to spend 1 Aiki chit to buy a new fate. Fate rolls can be made during the game as well, but in most cases, it should only be used during the gym. All right. Using ki. So you act like you're in a kabuki theater. The other players love it. They're laughing, they're crying, they're cheering. They award you with Aiki. During intermission, which happens between acts, you can convert these Aiki points into ki. Ki is your key points, your chi points. It's your hero points. The legends of Tenra are filled with single samurai who held off armies against 5,000 or more. Ki represents your explosive power. Ki is your power points to use legendary attacks. But you have to be careful, because when you spend this mega ultimate power, it becomes karma. And eventually you might become an NPC demon. The most common use of ki is to boost how many dice are rolled for a skill roll. Each extra die roll costs a point of ki. There is no limit. You could spend 50 ki points to roll 50 additional dice. And with monstrous karmic fallout. Respect. Derek, I want to. All right, so the demons are invading from hell. Right. All right, I'm going to stand at the portal to hell and I'm going to hold them off. For how long? Until the city is evacuated. The city's evacuated. There's 1.6 million people in this city. It's going to take days for the city to evacuate. Then I will hold the portal for days without sleep against the armies of hell. All right. It's going to be difficulty 30. All right. I'm going to spend 60 ki to roll with plus 60 dice. All right. Count up the section. Count up the fate, or count up the successes. I got 35. All right. For 4 days and 4 nights, you hold the armies of hell at bay. Right. And I got that because I went on a legendary chicken dance rampage in the previous scene. Another thing that you can do is boost your skill. 3 points can raise a skill by 1. A skill can be raised by more than 1. The most you can raise it to is 4. This has to be done before the dice are rolled. And you can use this with other boosting effects. So I can raise my skill from 1 to 4 and then add 50 dice. I don't know that I'd ever have 50 ki, but you get the point. If you use a dice boost or skill boost and roll a tie, you pick up all your dice and keep re-rolling them. After a roll is made, you can buy additional successes. You could do this to increase the level of success on a successful roll, or you could turn a failure into a tie, or you could turn a failure into a success. Each success after the roll is made can be bought for 3 points. Any number of successes can be purchased in this manner. So, I mean, it is straight out buying your win. Oh, you can also spend 2 ki points to interrupt an action and go before another NPC before they make their roll. And only one person can interrupt at a time. You can't have chained interrupts. In combat, interrupting takes 3 points. You can also spend 1 ki point to take another combat action. This can be done any number of times. If you want to take an additional action in combat before other people go, you have to spend 3 points. 2 to interrupt, 1 for an extra action. If another character is about to be hit, you can spend 1 ki point to have your character jump in and take the hit. You can shift your emotion matrix. You can gain equipment. Useful new equipment is purchased in karma, not in copper and gold. Equipment is purchased usually during intermission scenes. Soul gems cost 1 ki. Shikigami prayer strips for onmyojutsu summoning costs 1 ki for 10 strips, etc., etc. A character can receive a new weapon in the middle of a scenario, but they must pay the karma cost to equip it. Otherwise, it's lost. You can spend 10 ki to raise your any attribute by 1 point. You can take new skills with ki. So ki is also your XP for permanently raising. And you can do this in the middle of a scenario, by the way. All right. Well, now, so ki is XP. Ki is also broken meta currency. Karma. All spent ki points become karma at the beginning of the intermission. The upper limit is 108. This is the number of Buddhist attachments, defilements, and sins. I wondered why 108 particularly. If the character's karma exceeds 108 by the end of the intermission, the character becomes an Ashura, and the character is immediately retired, becoming an NPC. Karma can be reduced by subliminating, erasing, or changing your fates. Ashura are lost souls, people who have they've stopped trying to change their fate and simply resort to stopping nothing to achieve their goal. If you become 108, if you're above 108, you are in danger of becoming an Ashura. If you cannot get this down to below 108, you become an Ashura. Okay, so fates. These are what your character cares about. It's the relationships you maintain, the paths that you walk, and the goals you wish to obtain. Picking fates and role-playing to them is central to the game and core to Tenra Bansho 0. So it's literally the opposite of FBT. It's mechanical role-playing. The game is about this. The players will pick interesting fates to act out, act out in character, appealing to the audience through dramatic or cool line, in-character actions, and general roleplay. Notice that acting out in character, in-character actions, and general roleplay are separate things. The more you act out your fates, the more aki-chits you will collect from the other players. You can also acquire them from your destinies and from your fates. Destinies, everyone will get one from the GM, basically. You write down your character sheet on a fate. It's a good idea to put on a note card because it's really important. The no self anatoman? The anatoman phase. Got it. The intermission phase of the game, which happens between acts, there's usually 2 to 4 intermissions per game. It's a time for the players to rest, decide their next course of action, and to make deep changes to their characters. They will make changes to their PC's fates during intermission in a structured phase called the no-self phase. The character's personality will start to change as they begin to care about new things, becoming concerned with new goals and relationships, starting to change their relationships with the things they care about, or even stop caring about things together. See the zero system for intermission, for information on the structure of intermissions. It's a Buddhist expression, also known as the impermanence of worldly things, or the no-self. We got some kanji here, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so first you create new fates, then you raise the level of fates, then you subliminate your fates, and then you rewrite your fates. It is important to go in this order. The important thing is that every fate has a cost, right? We saw this before, right? Fate rank 2 is 0, then 3 is 10, 4 is 30, 5 is 70.
Know what they awoke in the darkness of Khazad-dûm. Shadow and flame.
Ludo, I tipped $15. Got to support good weeb games on the channel.
This is a very weeb game. This might be the most weeb game we've ever talked about. Thank you, Ludo. I appreciate it. So the more powerful you care about a fate, the more dice you roll when you try to use it to gain ki. The total cost of all PC fates must be less than your karma score. The character can only care about so many things, and the karma score represents their character's capacity for caring about their fates. In other words, the more you care about things, the higher your karma is. Or I should say vice versa. It's limited by how much you care about things, right? So in other words, a character who has very low karma, has no attachment, basically has very low or very low powered fates, or not a lot of fates. A character who cares about a lot of things can only do so if they have a high karma, because they are so attached to everything. Calculating the cost of PC fates is sometimes jokingly referred to as doing your fate taxes. Early in the game, it is almost impossible to exceed your total karma score. After the second or third intermission, however, players have to be careful that your total fate does not exceed your karma. You can create new fates with an Aki chit. So players will want to create, this is an important step, as players will want to create new fates for their characters. New fates will give your character new direction and more capacity to receive Aiki chits. Players will roll on the emotion matrix, but these do not automatically become fates. Instead, if a player wants their PC to have a relationship with another character tied into a fate, they will need to spend the Aiki chit and write in the nature of that relationship as a fate. However, the emotion matrix is a great starting place for generating relationship-based fates, especially because those relationships will change over the course of an adventure. Write the fate in. It starts at a rating of 2. Remember, new fates do not have a fate cost, so don't worry about picking up new fates. They don't raise your fate score. The maximum number of fates that a character can have is 8. 7 fates, 1 destiny. Many relationships or emotion fates are tied to other PCs. If you create a fate for yourself where the target of your emotion is another player, give that player your Aiki chit instead of discarding it. You can also assign fates to other PCs as well. Give them an Aiki chit and tell them the fate that you wish their character to have. If they accept it, they receive the chit and write down the fate. If they don't want the fate, you can keep your chit. Since you can only create 1 new fate for your own character per intermission, encouraging the players to assign each other fates will help everyone increase your fate counts. Switchback Channel says, seeing a bunch of Buddhist terms in this RPG must be like what it's seeing all the Latin or Dante's Inferno ones in a Western one. Agreed, Switchback Channel. In the second phase, you can raise any and all of your fates up by a single level. 2 can go to 3, 3 can go to 4. There is no cost to this. Simply add a new dot. But this is where you have to keep track of your fate costs. You can't go higher than your karma score. The third step is to discard fates that you no longer care about. Perhaps a goal has been achieved or you never felt strongly about it. Draw a line through it to subliminate it, but still leave it on your character sheet for now. If you wish to subliminate your destiny, you have to check with the GM. The sublimation of fates instantly results in a great reduction of karma. When you finally remove that fate from play, you immediately lower your total karma score by a number equal to your fate current score. Fates ranked at rank 2 have no score, so they don't reduce anything. So for example, if we accomplish or gave up on a rank 5 fate, we would reduce our karma score by 70. So this is something that we cared about the most. And if we let that go, our karma comes crashing down. It's kind of neat. It's kind of cool. This is one of the 2 ways that you lower your karma in order to avoid becoming an Ashura. It is important to raise the levels of fate throughout the game so that you can knock them out and lower your karma score, right? Because the actions we take through the game are going to build up our karma score. And that means that we have to care about things so that we can complete them, give up on them, and then lower our karma. The last step that we can do in this phase is a rewrite a fate. When we rewrite, we change an aspect of it. For example, we may have an emotion of anger towards Crimson Fist, but we could change this from an emotion to friendship of Crimson Fist, or perhaps we change it to an emotion of undying hatred of Crimson Fist. When you rewrite a fate, you lower that fate by 1 rank. And we also lower our karma a bit. Rewriting our fates is the only other way to reduce your karma and reduces your chances of exceeding your karma threshold and becoming an Ashura. So this means that the core play structure of this game is caring about things, but completing your emotional or metaphysical or real goal so that you can eliminate that care or concern, that fate, or completing your destiny so that then you can reduce the karma. Because if you fail to do that, your character will become a Ashura and become an NPC and become evil and overly obsessed by the things that they care about. For those of you who have played Torchbearer or Burning Wheel, this is basically like the nature system. Remember how your character in Torchbearer, if their nature score goes too high, they retire. They give up adventuring and they become, they settle down in the Shire. They start a farm. They run for mayor of the city council. They stop being an adventurer and they start becoming a dwarf, and they take the boat to go over the sea to the Undying West, or to the Undying Lands, to the uttermost west, right? If your nature goes over 7 in Torchbearer, your character retires because, they became too much of a human, too much of an elf, too much of a dwarf. If your nature becomes 0 in Torchbearer, your character retires as well because they become a crazy person. They've lost touch with humanity too much that they become a nomadic weirdo. And it's kind of the same thing in this game. If your karma is too high, you become so attached to things that you start becoming a zealot. You almost start becoming a problem. And then your character becomes evil and an NPC. If your karma goes below 0, the game also said that you retire, which means that if your karma is low and you complete a massive fate and reduce your fate to 0, you also retire because now you don't care about anything, which is really interesting. So that's the system. That's pretty cool. See, there you go, Babar. You said, see, what can I say? It was for the greater good. There you go. Well done. Well done. Beowulf, I'm not sure if in Buddhist philosophy that loving anyone, even if you're loving them selflessly, is a good thing. I think the idea in true Buddhism is that you remove all attachments to all material things. I could be wrong. I am not a Buddhist. So I'm very much not speaking on behalf of Buddhists everywhere. But, you know, I think in Buddhism, at least, I think the idea is that you give up all attachments. So there are several types of fates. There are goals. There are goal-based fates. There are emotion-based fates. There are secret-based fates. There are love-based fates. Love is, of course, an emotion, but it's much stronger than emotion. So here he goes, like, perhaps you are in a loving relationship, or maybe you love someone but have not confessed your feelings to them yet. If your love becomes forgotten, or you break up with that person, or your love becomes unrequited, then it is likely that you can subliminate this fate in your next intermission. Or will you? An unrequited or unfulfilled love cannot be erased so easily. Perhaps it would be more interesting or dramatic to keep that love-based fate going for a while longer until you can finally let it go. Okay, Zen, I love my pets, like more than most humans, like that are in my life. In fact, there's like 3 humans I probably love more than my dogs. An enemy-based fate, a misfortune-based fate, a taboo-based fate, a background-based fate, and of course, the legendary other-based fate. Cool. And they talk about, like, some fates are closed. Basically, they're hard to bring across through roleplay, and they're usually hard to rewrite. There's open fates, which are easier to create and roleplay. They're like relationships, and, you know, it's very clearly to things. And then there are scratch-off fates, which is basically goals, right? Enemy fates, goals. Basically, you have that fate until you, till you kill that enemy, or until you accomplish that goal, and then it's easy to subliminate. I did the thing. I cared about it. I completed it. Cross it out, and then, you know, come it off. Scratch-off fates are important because they help keep your character from becoming an Ashura as long as you can keep fulfilling your goals or find enough reason to abandon them. Watch out for dead fates. These are fates where the target simply will never appear in the game. Loyalty to my family in a session where your family isn't around is kind of, you know, a dead fate. It's just not, you're not going to get any, you know, you're not going to get any mileage out of that, right? This is mooring about interfacing with, there's a whole separate subsection about interfacing with a soul mirror. I'm not focused on interfacing with soul mirrors here. So we're going to skip the soul mirror bonus here. But we have a lot of stuff here about all the different ways that these things are. In closing, the karma rules are centered around one thing: creating and getting into a story that is fun and exciting, both beautiful and sorrowful, enjoyable and painful. It requires the cooperation of all the players to make this happen. If the game session is a canvas and the players are the painters, then the karma rule are the paints. And this, you know, remember how I talked about games that care? Game rules that are loud, game rules that matter, right? Game rules that demand, that insist upon themselves, okay? These are game rules that insist upon themselves, right? This is not merely a conversation between the players and the game, right? This is that the mechanics here are important. They are here for a reason. They are what allow you to paint this picture. The players play the roles of their characters, and the GM coordinates the action and flow of the game. Together, the drama coordinates and develops through play. Fates are the players' influence over what happens to their character and their story. Destinies are the GM's message to the players as to what role there is in this story. The karma system brings that out to the forefront in a way where an entire story can be told from start to finish over the course of a single session. I question mark that, but it condenses the action and drama into a short time period and emphasizes change in the surrounding events. When you engage with the karma rules in Tenra Bansho, you need to remember the mantra of the creator of this game, Junichi Inoue. Everything exists for the sake of drama. Your characters are the tools you control to make the story more interesting for everyone. The characters are the resolute, unbreakable entities, the focus at the center of a story. The story that develops from your characters and your role play is your story, your own unique mark left on the world of Tenra. So there you go, right? Your characters are, everything in this game is for the sake of drama. Your characters are just tools that you're controlling And they exist to make the story better and more interesting for everybody. Not just you, not just the GM, everybody. So there we go. Another comic that indicates how to use ki randomly in the middle of this section. Okay. All right, we're going to skip the basic combat rules. Sorry. It's already 9 o'clock. But you know, we know that it's opposed rolls. You know, you take damage, you mark, we know that there's wound boxes that you check. Your vitality is like a hit point section. Quick couple thing. In Tenra Bansho 0, player effectively decides when their character dies. If the player eggs on a series of brutal, insurmountable fights, she could simply choose to lose on purpose, running out of vitality and passing out each time instead of dying. Of course, this means they're taken out of the fight, perhaps demoralized, rebuked, or even taken captive. It also means that the antagonist or their enemy gets to advance the plot with them out of the way, which will probably soon begin to affect the PCs, things that they do care about, their fates. Eventually, the PCs will find themselves in a fight they need to, or their player wants to, win. That's when they'll start checking off the dead box to stay in the game. So, if you check the dead box, your character can die. If you don't check the dead box, your character can't die. TLDR, right? It's like raising your death flag, right? Note, by the way, that if you are a mech rider, if your armor takes a dead box, it means that your armor is damaged. Doesn't mean that you are dead. How much wounds and ranks? Dead. Cannot heal in combat. Can't heal dead. He could be brought back from the dead once a game. All right. So we got combat rules, special combat rules, sneak attacks, samurai form, butterfly dreams, ranged weapons, multiple targets, dreadnought, repeater, multi-cannon. All right. Zero Shiki, the zero system. Make use of these rules and you will enter a new world. What is the zero system? Up until now, the basic game rules have focused on creating a character, doing things in character, being rewarded for role-playing, and battle, which we did skip the battle section. I apologize. The zero section system is a collection of rules that establishes a fun, fast-paced play session. These are the rules that make playing the game feel more like a story out of a stage or kabuki play, anime, manga, or novel. This breaks down the game into acts, scenes, and intermissions, and understanding the flow between them being an important part of the process. There are also other rules that you need to know. Learning them is just as important as to the success of a succession as learning how to make a combat roll or learning how to spend your Aiki chits. Things like how to prep a game, schedule, organization, character creation and approval, game flow, and finally, cleanup after a session are just as important to the fun, success, and fun of a session. Amen, brother. Amen. In fact, sometimes I think that these things are more important to the success of a session. All right. So, we need a place to play, free time, and friends. That's all you need. Well, guess what? I have 2 of those 3 things. Many RPGs are structured so that the story runs on and on over the space of many sessions. Tenra Bansho was meant to be a fast role-playing game. The entire game, from character creation to adventure to conclusion, all happens in a single session. A Tenra Bansho campaign happens from start to finish in 5 to 6 hours. This can be easily done if you plan and meet with your friends on a single weekend day. In Japan, people meet with friends far more on the weekends than the weekdays. However, in the West, we often make plans to meet with friends on weeknights. Therefore, while the intent behind the design was for all the players to meet on one day of the weekend and together share an epic story over 5 to 6 hours, many of us in the West have more flexible with our time. You could break this up over, say, 2 to 3 weeknights of 3 to 4 hours each. So basically, meeting with your friends, say, over a couple of Tuesdays. As long as you're able to keep the momentum going, you could probably break that 5 or 6 hours up over 2 or more sessions. Just don't put too much time between sessions, as players will quickly forget what happened in the previous session. I'm convinced you could run the session the next day and your players will have likely forgotten what happened. That is obvious. I do have friends. I just don't have friends with time. That's a good point. We need a place to play. In Japan, houses are often small and private, so people usually play in public places, which is really interesting. We need a table and a place to sit around. Free time. We need 4 to 6 hours. That's the default. It assumes that there are 3 to 5 players, including the game master. So 2 to 4 players. Makes sense. Makes sense. With a game master and 4 players, you might find that 4 hours is a little tight and that 5 or 6 hours is good for a good amount of time. In fact, many kabuki plays, like long-scale Western theatrical productions, like Shakespeare, last 6 or more hours when you include an intermission. This is best held over a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. You probably never want to be spending more than 7 or 8 total hours on a game of Tenra. Fair enough. All right. He's checking it out. All right. Game master preparation. Knows the rules. Checks the rules. Plans the scenario. Prepares supplies. Player preparations. Be awake, alive, and ready. Oh, already lost. Bring your own dice and stuff. Probably a good idea to know some of the rules and to bring snacks for everyone. Everyone decides on a time and a place, and we get there on time. Then we set the stage. We decide where to sit. The GM decides the place's destinies. The players choose their fates. The curtain rises, and we start playing, and then the curtain call, and the game is over. In fact, maybe we should head out to a coffee house or restaurant to discuss what happened. You know, one of my favorite memories used to be that we would used to play, a game session. This is when I was in my 20s, obviously, we living in our apartment or house or whatever, that we all, I rented a house with 2 friends. And, we'd get together, we'd play D&D, till 1, 2 in the morning and end an adventure on a real high note, take out a really cool monster boss, find a big treasure. And it'd be like 2 in the morning and everybody would be like, you guys want to go to Denny's or whatever? And we'd all hit up Denny's and we'd like talk about the session till like the sun came up. How much I miss that. And I say that as someone who probably would fall asleep, but I mean, not anymore because I'm up till ungodly hours. Finally, a game brave enough to tackle the difficulty of scheduling in the how to play a role-playing game section. Exactly. They talk about how to find friends. All right. When the game comes together, at least the GM has to have an idea of what they want to have happen. So there's a little bit of railroading here. The GM usually writes down a scenario or story outline of the events which will happen in the game, the characters that will appear in the game, and perhaps some stats. Most GMs will want to script out events in a way that they expect their characters to move in a line from act to act, scene to scene, following the GM's carefully made up story. Now, look, I hate this, but when we did Ryutama, I was very, very critical of Ryutama, right? I was very critical of this game. And it was my understanding that I did so without a cultural appreciation for the Japanese, which is to say, that is their understanding of what a role-playing game is. Other GMs, though, might come up with just a basic concept and perhaps just write down a couple of ideas. Or you could just ad-lib and improvise everything from the beginning to the end. But I still get the sensation here that the goal is that the GM is setting the pace, They do have some of the best trains in the world, so they do like a good railroad. Probably the best way to prepare is somewhere in between and jotting down some ideas and having some ideas of how you want the scenes to flow. Again, so they're but there's still this idea of kind of the GM is the one, I think, even if the game is being improvised, it is still sort of the GM I feel that's kind of, at the helm. So you need writing materials, you need a rule book, you need chits to use. They recommend poker chips. Love poker chips. I love little glass beads, but I love a good poker chip too. By the way, if you do, by the way, Derek advice for 101, for those of you who may have never played a role-playing game in person before, or if you have played a role-playing game in person, you have sadly not used physical props, in which case I feel bad for you. If you buy poker chips, don't get the cheap plastic ones. You know, like the little tiny ones that you get. Like get good, solid poker chips, clay poker chips if you can, because having that weight to them makes the experience so much better. It's good to have a good solid poker chip. Edible tokens like cookies or chocolates are not a good idea, as it can be too difficult to resist the temptation. Character sheets, get a Xerox. If there's a cost to get them Xeroxed, maybe have the players pitch in. Bringing snacks and drinks, it might be a good idea to not just bring empty calories and greasy potato chips. Make sure that you have some ramen. Oh, sorry. I thought that said ramen. The GM should feel free to reward any players who bring quintessential Japanese snacks like Pocky or Ramune to a Tenra game session, particularly men's Pocky. Pokey? I don't know. I don't know Japanese enough to know what that is. I will say, when we played Legend of the Five Rings, this is back when we drank, we did switch it up from wine, mead. There was a lot of mead being drank at the time. But we switched over to sake from when we were playing Legend of the Five Rings. So, onegashimasu. Preparing for game day 0. Oh, shit. If someone came in with a nice fatty tuna roll, by the way, I am, like I said, I am not a sushi snob. Don't get me wrong. I love good sushi, right? You know, like I like a roll. I like maki. You know, like I'm not going to say no to a good piece of nigiri or whatever, but it's not my favorite. But what I love is garbage American sushi. And I love the idea of going to, you know, a really nice place and getting omakase or whatever, and just getting really high-end rolls, high-end fish. But I also love me like a deep fried tempura, chipotle mayo, you know. I love it. I love Philadelphia rolls. I love the cream cheese. What can I say? Got it. They are thin cookie biscuits with chocolate or strawberry coating the lower half. Interesting. Can't say I've ever had them. Talks about being on time, not being a dick. What is your job as a GM? You have to start the session. You have to story tell. You have to make judgments. You have to role play. You have to handle combat scenes, and you have to draw the session to the close. The GM should know what they like by watching anime, TVs, and movies. They should try to create a good roller coaster. Remember, that's actually what we said the other day when we were talking about railroads. And I said, the fact of the matter is what most people are going for is actually a roller coaster, right? And the GM in this case is setting scenes, closing scenes, skipping over boring scenes, extending a scene that's particularly interesting. Framing, right? The job of being the director. The one way that Tenra Bansho is different from plays is, of course, is that the story is normally predetermined. In this case, the players read their parts and act out their roles, but have no control over how the story develops. In Tenra Bansho, the GM only has about half of the story written. The GM might have ideas, but it is not pre-written. The players are the ones who get to define where they go, and of course, the dice as well. Make sure the players are having fun. The GM will have to make rules judgments. We get a little bit of a manga of what the GM has to do and how to pace scenes. We have information about role-playing, combat, and here is the structure of the game. So an act is composed of multiple scenes, and then we have an intermission where we can convert Aiki, make fate rolls, do the fate change, the no-self phase, right, where we can we can add a fate, we can upgrade a fate, we can delete a fate, and then we can change a fate. And then we go into the second act, and we have a bunch of scenes. And they said that a typical session, which is going to run 5 to 6 hours, is going to comprise of, I think they said 3 to 5 acts. So you could think of that an act is probably going to take somewhere between an hour and a half. So these scenes are pretty punchy. And then lastly, we'll continue this. We'll close the session off. Then at the end, we're going to talk about the scenario and talk about the character creation, talk about the setting, character creation, and all this other stuff. So this is really a like during intermission, the GM is literally giving you a preview of what's coming up in the next act. You know, they're going to be like, hey guys, next time, which is like in an hour because again, you're supposed to play this all in one stage. But again, during intermission, the GM will give you a preview of the next act because they want you to think about your fates and how they might change them. Then whatever ki you spent becomes karma. Then is the no self phase where you pick new fates. You raise the level of your fate with one of your fates. You sublimate your fates and you rewrite your fates. I can't believe I got that right. Yay. Then you make any fate rolls to turn your Aiki into ki. Then you discuss and you take a short little break and then you jump into the next act. They talk about characters that suck, characters whose fates are too selfish and focus on themselves, where to sit at the table, and more. Then they talk about the act structure. We're not going to get super deep into this, but I think they talk about how you should structure an act. You start an act, you begin a scene, decide who's in that scene, role play through the scene, end the scene, return to beginning a scene, or proceed to act 8 if the act is ended, or step 8 if the act is ended, have an intermission, and the act begins. So basic information here. The key is not every, the most important thing to take away from this, I think, is that not every player will be in every scene. For example, there may only be 1 or 2 characters in a scene. So there's event scenes, reaction scenes. You can spend Aiki to enter, or Ki, I should say, to enter a scene that you're not in. And so this is really more like, you know, screenwriting in this respect. So then there's a section which we're not going to get into here, but this is about the basically the act 0, where we basically make our characters or pick our pre-gens and write down our fates and get our destinies assigned to us. Destinies are a special type of fate that the GM gives you in order to steer your goal. And then the emotion matrix is a 6x6 grid of 36 emotion. It is used to determine what your character initially thinks about PCs and NPCs. And remember, you do roll on this, but you can use your ki points, right, to move around the emotion matrix. So let's take a look at the emotion matrix. That's what I really want to see. So it's a it's a D66 table. So I've got a black and a white D66. I got a black and a white D6 right here. So my black will be my 1s. So I rolled a 14. So the relationship between me and, say, another NPC is a pursuer. Or maybe me and an NPC is a pursuer. Am I pursuing them? Why am I pursuing them? Is it like I'm pursuing them because I want them to love me, or am I pursuing them to, like, you know, pay them back for vengeance? I don't know. I'll do another one. Black is the 1s. Oh, I got in settled mind. Ooh, I've got a 33. That's a warning. So this, and now remember, this is part of the game. Like, it's not just like an optional thing, because you can use your meta currency points to shift what you roll up, down, left, or right. So, you know, if you want to modify the rule, you have to actually, you know, sort of shift it around. Let's see here. I love the American sushi stuff too. That is basically the sushi you get around here. I love sushi. I guess it would be a snob in that regard. I believe it must contain real raw fish. No Philly roll for me. Lol. No, it doesn't have to have raw fish. And in fact, if I'm correct, sushi isn't really even about the raw fish, right? You can have sushi that doesn't have raw fish. In fact, I believe a sushi purist would say it's all about the rice, but yeah, I would say that I do like the sauce, you know. So, Emotion matrix tells the players what their character feels towards that person the first time they meet. Players should only be making emotion matrix rolls once a scene. Eventually, by the first or second act, there will be no new important NPCs encountered. So most of the emotion matrix rolls will occur during the first quarter to third of the game. If you do not like this, you can make an adjustment. You can spend your ki points to shift up, down, or left. So if you really want to, you can get to the emotion that you want. The GM can also shift this by giving you Aiki chits. So the GM can basically, bribe you. For example, perhaps the GM wishes for the player to choose a more challenging relationship for their player. And so they bribe you and make you shift to one that works better for their sushi or for their scenario. Now we're talking about sushi and I'm fucking hungry. Cool. A lot of stuff. And then they have something called the moment of truth. And it's an optional rule, but it's funny because in Avatar, that is actually something in Avatar, the Last Airbender, Avatar Legends, the game from Magpie, there's something called the moment of truth. Power. It's when your character is in balance and then they can do a super move. Jess says we should get sushi in Philly. Tell Steven. Well, according to Steven, he says the food in Philly is amazing. And he said that there's a lot of good places nearby, and I'm all in, Jess. I'm also totally in to get dim sum as well, where we can usually also probably get some pretty good sushi. But yeah, I'm down. Then we have a chapter on scenario creation, which we're going to skip. I'm going to go all the way up to here, and I'm going to end our armor. Yoro. All right, help me out, Japanese people, Japanophiles. Yoroi. Ooh, which is it? Yoroi. Let's see here. According to this AI interviews, it is more like yaoroi. It is a Japanese word for armor, and the pronunciation is similar to saying yo as in yawn and roi as in royalty. So yoroi. The first symbol sounds like yo, and the second symbol stressed is roi.
Welcome to this pronunciation video. Today we will be focusing on a new word that you might find challenging or intriguing. So let's dive into today's word. Yoroire, which means
armor holder in Japanese.
Let's say it all together. Yoroire. 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 One more time. Yoroire. Yoroire.
Okay, well that didn't help. Yoroide. They did add a day there. Armor. These are the products of generation of priesthood-backed technology. They are the terrors of the battlefield, and even one is enough to make an army of men flee. Meikyo armors are carefully crafted works of high quality, while Kimen armors are mass-produced, lesser quality. Subtle differences arrive, so be careful to learn the distance. Any karma gained while a pilot is interfaced with a Mikyo soul mirror is absorbed by the Mikyo. This total, they're obsessed with these Mikyo soul mirrors. All right. Kimen armors are mass-produced, but they rely on onmyo jutsu magic and high technology to function like their Mikyo counterparts. However, they operate on lesser Kimen calculating devices instead of Meikyo soul mirrors. This means that Kimen armor and Kimen kongoki do not benefit from karma bonuses that their Meikyo counterparts receive, naturally. This accounts for the high difference in quality. All right. So how do we pilot armor? A pilot must possess the interface skill. So there's a skill. The combined karma of the rider and the armor's Meikyo mirror must be less than 108. Meikyo. Oh, Meikyo. Okay. If these conditions are not met, then the armor's Meikyo will not be accessible, even with an interface helm. The pilot will be locked out, and the armor will not interface with them. Outside of combat, an armor can be entered as it sees fit. Most pilots will leave their armor outside of a village or in a stable while traveling into one of the great cities. The armor is locked using key code or key held by the pilot. Only higher-ranked priesthood agents have the skill to hijack a pilotless armor, so armor pilots never worry about someone messing with their ride. While piloting an armor, the armor's stats for body, agility, and senses are used. The pilot uses their interface skill for every single physical-based roll while piloting the armor. Attacking, shooting, spotting, climbing, evading. Remember to add the meikyo bonus to all rolls. If the pilot is skilled in the art of war, they can use their skills while piloting the armor. However, since those arts are steeped in physical training, they must use the appropriate skill, melee weapons, marksman, unarmed combat, instead of interface. If the combined karma total of the pilot and the armor's meikyo goes over 108 while piloting the armor, the pilot's soul becomes trapped inside of the meikyo and cannot wake up or escape forever. Here begin the rules for creating your new yoroi armors. For beginning, we highly recommend using simple armor loadouts. However, you can customize them from scratch. First, you choose a frame. There are 4 basic frames. Each has a pool of attributes for body, attribute, and senses. Each armor has a station score required to equip it. Stronger armor. So we have base armor, suit armor, living armor, and great armor. This is a basic armor. It requires a station of 8 or 4. You have 16 points to split between the attributes. Suit armor, which is pilotable suit armor, which only gives you 12 points. Living armor gives you 14 points. And great armor gives you 26 points. And that's, by the way, splitting that between 3. They are legendary. Then you have to decide what it looks like. Kimen and Kongoki armors tend to be blocky and steampunkish-ish. One kingdom may rely on armors of a uniform appearance, while another may have several different models. One humanoid armor may look like a thin, naked, metallic person, while another may be a bulky Hulk with defensive plates of armor. Some will be sleek and fast, others will be bulky and powerful like a rugby player. They may have aspects like house mon symbols, cosmetic touches. Weapons, twin blades for one armor may look like sword-like spikes which extend from the forearm, while for others it may be a permanently extended chainsaw blade. Another might have retractable tine blades like a fork or a trident, or another may have a high-speed rotating drill assembly permanently attached inside of your left hand. Decide what your weapon looks like. Then we determine our armor's karma. Then armor can have mechanica devices added to the frames. So, for example, if we added a cyclone gatling repeater mechanica, we would add a certain amount of karma. I have no idea what most of this is, but the engine, armor, Kongoki equipment, armor equipment, mechanica, basic weapons, unique armors, customized weapons, extra soul gems, extra ammo. We have a whole thing here. Armors of the living armor type can have annelids implanted within their living flesh. So one of our armor types is a living armor, in which case we can imbue it with the worm people. I assume this is like a shout out to like tentacle porn or something? Am I missing something? Are living worms important to Japanese anime? I'm not completely up on that part of it. I know that apparently they really like tentacles when it comes to sex, is what I've been led to believe. Or at least that's what the memes would have me think. So then we build all that, and then we finish the frame and we distribute. Okay. Then we calculate the vitality in the wounds, and then we add additional equipment. No. The tentacle sex thing is due to censorship laws. Well, that is a hell of a thing. Wes says, all mechs in my game would be solely made of tentacles. Okay. So each piece of equipment comes in 3 different sets. Head, upper torso / arms, and lower torso / legs. The number of slots available for equipment depends on the number of slots available for head, torso, and legs. Each piece of equipment shows you how many slots it takes. Head types. There are 2 types of heads, a humanoid-looking face or a skull. Okay. Then we can upgrade it with different head equipment types. We can have battlefield mastery upgrades, dark vision upgrades, eyes of distant death. The vision increases the steadiness of zoomed-in vision while projecting a HUD and probability tables, giving us +2 bonus dice for marksmanship attacks. We can extend our life pulse sensors, motion detectors, Sha sensors. We can add mechanica to the head region. Then we also have stuff that we can add to the arms, like the back personal transport, the brilliant flower of destruction. Looks like this is a self-destruction device. Heaven's Fire are special gunpowder rocket boosters, which allows us to leap up to 20 meters at once. We can fire them 3 times a scene. We can also add roto blades to our mech, storage compartment, thruster wings. We can also add, now the default is 2 legs, but we can add 4 legs, or we can add 6 or more legs. Or no legs, or gale speed rollers. Or we could have heaven rollers, or we could have hovers, or we could have legs that are fins. So there's all that. All right. So we're going to read this example here. Hey, thank you, Babar. You must imagine a pilot who gets too attached to his fates in between combat and cannot re-enter his mech before combat because his karma has risen too much. High drama a la Evangelion. I agree. Chicken legs are right here. To be fair, I think chicken legs is like a Western anime thing, maybe. I don't know. Right. A multi-leg centaur bot. No, I get it. Like, it's not just you. It's not just you're not just piloting the mech, right? The armor. You're like binding your soul with it, and the attachment of you being so physically attached to something so real, if you have too many emotional connections, could overwhelm you and keep you trapped and locked. I get it. I get what it's putting down. All right. Yoko is an armor rider and a Miko shrine girl for the Shinto priesthood. Coming from a long and established family line, she has been chosen to pilot one of the Yoroi armors given to her lord. Before the game begins, Nathan, Yoko's player, decides to craft a new armor rather than using the one that comes with the template. Nathan decides to create a Meikyo suit armor, which grants 12 points to the attribute pool. He decides that he wants a relatively humanoid-looking suit of armor based on a design he saw in a cool anime. You know, at least they're talking to the right, they're talking to their people when they say this. He chooses a frame which has 2 arms and 2 legs. My guy. Way to go, Nathan. This will grant a bonus of +2 to the body, +2 to agility, and +1 to senses. Well, no. Nathan is the one playing the game. The character's name is Yoko. Nathan, this is the classic American weeb wannabe who loves anime and acts like Davi got it right. Thank you. Well done, Davi. You got it. Nathan decides to choose a humanoid face and a kabuto helmet, but declares that Yoko's hair, that's his character, flows freely out of the back of the armor's kabuto helmet, obviously. The armor has 2 head slots. Nathan likes the idea of a bonus to projectile weapons, so chooses Eyes of Distant Death and a dark vision upgrade. There are 6 open upper body arm slots. The thought of leaping high sounds cool, so Nathan adds Heaven's Fire. But there are 4 slots remaining. But instead of taking another piece of equipment or more thrusters, he stops there for now. Next, Nathan decides to add twin blades to each of the armor's legs. This will not increase the number of attacks, but it does look cool. And protects against the possibility of one of the blades breaking or being destroyed. This fills the open leg slots. On the lower torso, he decides to take a projectile weapon. Looking over the general weapon list, he settles on a standard soul gem rifle. Next, Nathan adds up the total cost of his armor to see how it stands. The first Meikyo soul gem and heart engine, which powers the armor, don't cost anything. He has 6 pieces of equipment: Eyes of Death, Dark Vision, Heaven's Fire, 2 twin blades, and the soul gem rifle, which comes out to a total of 30 karma. Nathan wants 25 extra soul gems as ammunition for the rifle. That costs an extra 5 karma. So the final karma tossed is 35. Finally, it's time to spread around that attribute pool. Suit armors get 12 points, and because of the humanoid frame, it gets an extra 5 points, 2 body, 2 agility, 1 sense, for a total of 17. He decides for the mecha concept. He wants an armor that is light, fast, and very competent with ranged weapons. He decides on a final spread of body 4, agility 7, and senses 5. The armor's Meikyo starts off with 35 karma and requires a station of 6 to pilot. So here's an example of some pre-made ones as well. Here is, for example, the Prowling Lion. Kind of built out. It has a Yoroi Gem Blade, the Roaring Dragon Mortar, and an Explosive Spiker. It has Gale Speed Rollers and 50 Soul Gems. Here's the Steel Demon Mark II with a Yoroi Greatsword, a Heavy Repeater, and a Great Cannon. Here is the Flower of Thunder with a Soul Gem Rifle and Twin Blades, kind of similar to what we built. Here is the White River, the Crimson Spider. By the way, I like all these a lot better than the ones from Lancer, just saying. The Earth King, the Sky Fang. That sounds sweet, although it does have 4 arms, but that's okay. It has a long spear, a long cursed lancer, and a heavy repeater. So here are all the weapons that you can equip. Each weapon costs 5 karma. This tells you how much damage it does, what its rate of fire is, what its range is, how much ammo it takes or requires, its location, and how many slots. We have spikers, claws, twin blades, the white heat palm, cursed lancer, repeating cursed lancer, peerless cursed lancer, Shikiden howler cannon, Raiden mortars. I think these are just those are just the weapons. Other weapons. See the weapon list if you want to see more weapon probability, more options. Also, we have this is the Onomojuju Ichue. So there we go. So we can not only use special mech weapons, we can also use the normal weapon list, which is from the weapon list. For armor, simply add +4 damage to the rating of any listed weapon, right? So we can use the normal weapon list for, like, people. We just add 4 points to the damage and leave the other stats as is, and we can basically turn it into a mech weapon. But these are specifically mech weapon. I want to see what this Lancer is here. Curse Lancer. This is a massive rifle or cannon which fires a soul gem prepared steel. So it's like a rail cannon or rail gun. Got it. This has a multi-barrel. And the Peerless is the latest in Soul Gem mass driver technology that fires bullets at even higher speeds previously obtained, resulting in higher damage and longer range. The Fury of the Kami is a massive cannon, indisputably the most powerful armor-carried weapon available. It unleashes pure hell on any single target on the battlefield. It has an extremely long range, but requires a bit of time to reload. There you go. So, mechs are indeed in the game. We also have summoning. Taoist sorcerers called Onmyoji don't fly or throw bolts of fire. They summon creatures called Shiki or Shikigami to do these for them. So that's one of the other things that you can be in this game. Again, lots of... Here are all the Shiki power charts on a D66 table. If you roll 66, you roll 3 more times and stop. That's pretty sick. What else do we got? Here are samurai. All right, this is the weeb check. All right. Poll's coming up. We got the samurai here. Sorry, here we go. This is... Barbara says, thanks, man, you've done it. So we've got samurai, but they're not just samurai, right? Like they imbue their katanas with soul gems, and they undergo samurai surgery. These are no mere warriors. They are characters who have undergone the mystical and painful samuraization surgery. So you are literally like a genetically, magically engineered soul gem warrior, right? You're like an enhanced biotech weapon. We then have this, which is clearly a priest. This is a Buddhist monk who is basically looks like they are a spirit burst, Kamehameha, spirit bomb, key, summoner, master, priest, exorcist type character with things like the 1,000 unsettled hands of war, the heavenly gate, the broken army. This is the ultimate art available until the practitioner is the true power source within all of their mastery. Then we have Kaijin and Mechanica. So these are cybernetic dudes and dudettes that let you modify your character with brain enhancements, nervous system, interface helms. You can replace your arms with projectile fists and blossom drills and all sorts of other fucked up stuff. Cyborgs, basically. Then we have Kongoki, which are products of priesthood-backed technology. They were pilotless armor. So these must be like androids. These must be like robots. There we go. Okay, we got android robots or whatever you want to call them. So like, Cosmos, right? Cosmos is like the coolest android. I mean, Data, but in terms of like anime, Cosmos. Then we have ninjutsu, which is obviously ninjas using ninja magic, using Hyoki no Jutsu, possessed by the inner demon. Bakurai ho no Jutsu, the exploding thunderball technique. Right? That's one of them. Right? So you're turning into darkness, you're flowing around like a ninja, and you're, using all your shinobi venom eater, thousand eyes, exploding, heart exploding techniques as a ninja. Here the school of dream, the school of shadow, the school of stone, the ghost clan, the true school of shadow, the school of the shore, and the school of dust. Here is our geisha. Oh, nope. This is the kugutsu and the butterfly dream. These are the ability to enter the illusionary phantom dream world, which is called the butterfly dream. It's based off of your ability to pillow talk and seduce people. If they're the kugutsu is the Jedi. So if the target is sleeping, they can pull them into the butterfly dream. I'm basically I'm going to call this Teleranrioid and leave it at that. Or maybe the mirror dimension, but I'm going to call it Teleranrioid and just leave it at Teleranrioid. And then here are the Annelid, which look like they are the parasitic worm parasites, also known as mushi. Annelids serve their host. And so you're like a parasite infested host of a powerful alien critter. And then there is Oni, where you are apparently a demon from another realm of dimension, or you could be a Shinto priest, or you could be an Ayakashi, which is unfortunately the rules are incomplete. For the Ayakashi will never truly understand humans, nor will humans ever fully understand Ayakashi. Therefore, Ayakashi are unknown, and we don't know what they are. What? I don't even know what this is. Shadow people? I'll just go with shadow people. And then we have, okay, that's it. And And these are all this is all the combat war arts that you can learn. And there we go. All right, so the poll of the question, or the most important poll of the day, is going to be, now you could technically take multiple archetypes, but would you be? All right, it's one-shot anime kabuki drama time. What are you being? Are you going to be the mech pilot, the super samurai, the Buddhist key monk, the cyborg, the Kongoki? What was the Kongoki? Oh, the android. The android, the ninja, the dreamer, the possessed, the oni, the Shinto priest, or the shadow demon. All right. The poll to end all polls. You got to think hard about this. All right. It is kabuki drama time. I apparently went over 11. It goes to 11. And then now when you start the game, these are all just the rules for these different things, by the way. 11 is the shadow demon, by the way. It's not on our list. You can barely see it because it went too far. Don't go overboard. You usually want 2 to 4 archetypes. And here's the list of archetypes. Now, some of these things are obviously going to, play into those different areas more than other ones. But, you could be the doctor, the healer, the traveling performer, a thief, a vassal servant, a playboy, a harlot, a wanderer, a princess, a sword master, a mercenary, a paragon, a soul gem rifleman, a gun lancer, an assassin, a lordless soldier, a dragoon, a Ayakashi hunter, a weapon collector, a Yoroi armor rider, a Keeman armor rider, an armor hunter, a former armor rider. You could be a Taoist sorcerer, a talismusin, a Kijin Shiki singer, a samurai, a fallen samurai, a Buddhist monk, a fist of Akala, a devoted warrior monk, right? So you got all these different things here. Look at the spread. All right, so no love for the Oni and the cyborg, but look at the spread here. I mean, I'm actually reasonably impressed here. Thank God I could be. This was really important to you, Pumpkin. All right, everybody, keep putting your votes in. If you haven't voted, make sure you vote. You just type the number in chat and post it, and it'll pick it up. Let's see here. Now, remember, Pumpkin, you could take 2 to 4 archetypes. You just have to watch your karma and be careful, because if you have too many archetypes, your karma is going to be too high. Right? Like you could be a playboy. You could be a playboy gun lancer, Pumpkin. Just saying. Sounds like your style, right? All right. You cannot stand to be alone. You feel uneasy unless you're constantly in the company of others, and you are constantly in fear of losing that company. So it costs 15 karma. You get 3 skill in seduction, 3 skill in information, no attribute penalty. You ideally want a good empathy. You get a silk kimono, and you get no equipment cost, no weapons, and no things. But your fate is the emotion, fear of loneliness. Go. Description: you are a traveling harlot, a concubine, a courtesan, or perhaps just a playboy traveling from city to city. James, what kind of playboy would you be if you couldn't get it done in the bedroom? The only thing that you need, I think, to have a mech is to have the interface skill. Where is the interface? There it is. It's spirit. right, on the character sheet. If you have ranks in interface, then you can pilot a mech. Well, Ludo, the game is, again, quoting the author, right? This game was supposed to be hyper Asia, and it was supposed to basically be everything that he loved about Asia, about Asian media. Right, here we go. To quote the creator, Junichi, a hyper Asian Japanese world, a world of magic and technology, of samurai and Taoist sorcery, of powerful mecha and cultured geisha. The world was named Tenra, and the game was Tenra Bansho. Everything in heaven and earth. Oh, right, Cinnabos. You also need enough status to be able to afford it. You're right. Correct, Cinnabos. So I'm seeing a lot of mech pilots here. Obviously, Mech Week representing. But yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool little spread there. Now, I don't know anime well enough to like know if these are like the, if this is a good representation of all the different types of characters that you might see in anime. But it seems pretty reasonable. Look at this. If you are a Yoroi armor rider, these are the really nice ones. The karma cost is 60. But you start with the interface skill of 4. So there you go. But you do have to have a station of at least 8. So you're going to have to put a lot of your starting attribute points into your station, which isn't so bad, right? Because your armor gives you body, agility, and senses. So it's kind of like, you know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of when I made my broken ass character for Smith's like Throw Down the Gauntlet Challenge Pathfinder 1 campaign, which was called, it was actually called Demon. We called it Death World, but I think it was called Demon Fall. No. Demon Fire was the name of the campaign. But in Demon Fire, basically it was a challenge-based game. And we were allowed to make custom races. And I made a custom race that got massive penalties to strength, dexterity, and constitution in exchange for bonuses to wisdom and charisma. And then my character, we were Gestalt. I was a paladin summoner, but my summoner was a synthesis summoner, which meant that I summoned my Eidolon and then I rode around inside of it like a suit of basically like a mech suit. And I used my Eidolon's strength, dex, and constitution. So the fact that my character's strength, dex, and constitution were shit didn't matter. But because my character had such a high wisdom and charisma and I was a paladin, I got to add my charisma to all my saves. And because my saves were really good, because I had a really high wisdom because of my character, but then I had a really high dexterity and constitution because of my Eidolon, it meant that my saves were off of, yes, that's correct, Pumpkin. But here's the thing, Pumpkin. By the end of that campaign, I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of like 26 character deaths. So that is true. I also started at the first session. My maximum HP was negative, so it didn't really work out that well. I believe George was a plant.
Darkness of Khazad-dûm. Shadow and flame.
Thaddeus, man, yeah.
$25 contribution to either a book or some drinks. Will be cool to see you at PAX.
Fantastic, buddy. I'm excited to see you there. Yeah, there's a couple people I want to see. I'm looking to hang out with my Roll for Combat folks. It'll be good to see Jess again, and some of the content creators that I've gotten a chance to get to know and hang out with. Like I know Dan, the Professor Dungeon Master, will be there. It'll be cool to see Thaddeus. It's going to be cool to see Erica. It's going to be cool to see Ben, all from the Patreon folk. Now, obviously, I've gotten a chance to hang out with some of those folks before. They've come to Gen Con or Origins or whatever. But I've never gotten a chance to meet others. So it'll be really neat. I definitely owe some people some drinks, particularly shout out to Ben, who's just been with us since the beginning. He's been he helped me get this channel off the ground and used to edit our audio podcast. And he's been on the show, I think, more than almost any other guest. And unfortunately, I've never actually gotten a chance to hang out with him, so that'll be really cool. But it'll be a fun time, so it'll be good. Anyways, I thought I was gonna hate this. I'm not gonna lie. I thought there were parts of it that were really cool. I liked the system. I thought it was pretty basic. Which one of those poll options would I choose? Well, if I'm being generic, I would say mech pilot, but. I think I'm going to go with Buddhist key monk. I actually think that's really cool. So I would be generically, I'd probably choose mech pilot, but I could choose Buddhist key monk. So, hey, thank you, Jams, for the drink fun. Hope you guys have a good time with Gone. Jams, I will. I'm really looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun to cut back and relax. And again, PAX Unplugged is a very tabletop focused game con. So it'll be neat to sort of have that experience. And I've never been to it before, so I think it'll be really, really cool. These mechs, I think, especially, well, I think they're much more like, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, like they're more like, I don't think they're necessarily powered suits. I mean, like they're human size, but they're not like, 40 meters tall or something like that. Like they're not huge. But again, I don't know. It didn't really say. And I don't think it really actually matters. So I think it's whatever you want it to be. Did it say? Let's see here. Armor was like, what page? Like 197 or something? Yeah, that's all right, Pumpkin. What you should try to do, Pumpkin, is you should try to figure out if you can make it out to Origins next year, because like I said, I'm probably going to try to throw down a couple $1,000s and get us our own set of rooms, or at least our own, room at the con, so that we can just have, number one, a cool lounge to hang out with. And number two, have a place exclusive for us to play games with Knights of Last Call and all this other cool stuff. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And plus Columbus is a pretty cheap town, relatively speaking. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if it says anything here about how big they are. Yeah, it doesn't really say how big the armor is, but no, I'm there. I'm on it. It just doesn't. I'm reading it. I'm just not showing you guys. It doesn't necessarily say how big it is. Oh, the frame types. Yeah, it just says it's, like the suit armor is clearly suit, right? Like the suit armor is clearly a pilotable suit armor, right? So I get the impression that this is definitely the, personal, like a elemental or like a Firefly from, BattleTech or something like that. So, a standard mech is like this. And then great armor, given that you get 26 points, I am assuming that this is massive, right? Each Colossus could take on an army single-handedly. So I'm assuming that this is, pretty big. So I think it depends. I don't think anyone's going to start with the super mega armor, although maybe you could. I don't know. But I mean, I think that you could easily start with something that is, more than human sized. But if you wanted to, you could restrict it to this. And this is probably, 8-9 feet tall or something like that, right? More of like a personalized mech suit than an actual, mech, the way that we would traditionally think of it. I didn't hate this. I loved how forthright and honest it was. The language was there's a lot of, the fact that this game is then you learn all of this. You learn this 500-page RPG to do a one-shot. You build this character with all of these options and you play it for a one-shot. That premise seems completely ridiculous. But I liked its honesty, its earnestness with which it talks about the way that the game is supposed to be run. The idea that the game is really more focused on telling a dramatic theater-like story than anything else, to the point where you're trying to emulate kabuki theater. I'm not making that up. The game did say that, that you have this internal reward system. I like Burning Wheel. I like Torchbearer. I like Mouse Guard. I love the nature rules for Mouse Guard and Torchbearer, where you basically, if you're too much or too little, you do, create a problem. Now what's interesting is, creating an interesting story was their last priority, because as a game, they chose everybody have fun as their first, primary objective, which fine. Now, here's what's crazy. I'm going to tell you something crazy. I would rather tell a great story than have fun. It's true. It's true. I really would. I would rather have a great story than have fun, because that great story pays dividends in the long run, right? People talk about, right, the two types of fun, right? There's the fun of the thing that's like, it's fun while you're doing it. And then there's the fun where it's like, I hiked the Appalachian Trail. That was not fun while I was doing it. There were a few moments where it was like, wow, what a beautiful sight. But it was not the kind of like, wee, going, like I'm at the water park, I'm having a great time kind of fun. It's one of those like deep rooted funs that really builds out, over time. And so for me, I'm willing to endure a certain amount of pain for the ability to tell a great story later, Pumpkin. So for me, I almost think that role-playing games are kind of like a pain in the butt process that we have to go through in order to create cool stories that we can then tell for years or decades later. At least that is how they have primarily been used for me. That's not to say that sometimes we're not crying of laughter, during a game session, or just having an incredible, amazing time with fucking, fuck yeah, let's go, high fives around the table. When those moments happen, it's awesome. But I don't like aim for those moments. If those moments happen, that's awesome. But what I'm trying to create are more moments that will live on, in infamy, or, in a better way. And I like trying to really sort of lean into that more than anything else. So yeah, this was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't hate this. In fact, I kind of liked it. I like the skill system. I think the karma system, I think the Aki Ki system is interesting. I've been told that the best way to win at Eve is the way to tell how well you're playing at Eve is how long it's been since the last time you logged on. That's what I've been told. So I'm kind of pleasantly surprised. I kind of thought this was kind of cool. It was pointed to the direct, and of course it had advice that in some of those sidebars and stuff that you don't see, like really focusing on like, what do you really need to run a game session? Well, you need planning, and you need to think about the logistics of where you're going to play and all these other factors. So I think that's really cool. I think that's really important. So I liked it. Obviously anime is not my genre of sorts, but I don't know. It strangely didn't feel overly anime to me as much. Beowulf says, I was right on up until weird samurai, Onai, cyborg, parasite people, and I was on board. So basically you were on it until it got to the anime stuff. There you go. Well, Beowulf, I'm glad you lost all interest so that you don't have to worry about a game that you will not have to play. Fantastic, everybody. Well, we are crushing. We're probably going to, so tomorrow we're going to do one more first look. We are going to be looking at, so shout out to Babar for who not only tipped and super chatted, but was the supporter who got us to do this. So blame them if you thought this was weird. But shout out to tomorrow. We are going to be doing a patron supported mech game. First look. Tomorrow we are going to be doing a game called Battle Century G Remastered. Battle Century G Remastered. So, and this one looks probably a bit more promising in terms of mechiness, I'm assuming. So we're not going to be doing Battle Century G. We're going to be doing Battle Century G Remastered. So that's where we're going to be tomorrow. And that hopefully we can finish up our Mech Week goal, and we'll get all three of these done. If we can finish up Mech Week goal, then when I return from PAX, we'll probably do Battletech / Mech Warrior, just so that we can end on a nice palate cleanser and show all these people what they're truly missing. Yeah, I think that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. So surprisingly, we were able to get through that. That was pretty good for 3 hours, all things considered. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to people who threw their support to me for PAX. I really appreciate that, as well as for the first look funds and for Mech Week. Thank you to Jams TV. Thank you to Thaddeus, Babar, Ludo, Davi for the gifted YouTube sub, and to Ragnar, Pathfinder, PhD, Beowulf, and Adarius, all who re-upped their Twitch subs. So I really, really appreciate that. As a reminder, if you'd like to support us for free, you could do so on twitch.tv. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you get 1 free Prime sub a month, and you can give that to us. You can give that to another streamer as well, but I suggest you use it, because if you don't use it, you lose it, and you're paying for it anyway, so you might as well use it. If you'd like to be a part of our community and you want to really support us, the best way to do it is to join our Patreon, just because, sure, you'd be supporting me with a couple of bucks a month, which I'd appreciate. You can join at a $5 level, $10 level, $25 level if you really want to support us. We also have some really premium tiers, which actually have a couple openings right now because some people have downgraded. But those will give you gold tickets, which will allow you access to playing games run by me or Bob or other exclusive Knights of Last Call, things where seating is limited. But you can do that at patreon.com/Knights of Last Call. Link in the doobly-doo below as well. But we'd love to have you there, because if you sat through 3 hours of Hyper Asia, the TTRPG, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of interesting ideas here, chances are the standard YouTube, Reddit, Discord isn't going to be for you, because everyone's going to be talking about 5th edition D&D. Not that I have a problem with 5th edition D&D, but if you're interested in these very, niche bespoke games, your choice is usually one niche bespoke Discord or Knights of Last Call. So maybe consider joining us if you want to be part of those conversations and funds. We also have a really big focus on running games, playing games. So, we try to encourage people and to empower people to play games. And we have a lot of game masters there who can give you good advice and all this other stuff. So, all right, everybody. That was my spiel. Thank you so much. I'm going to grab something to eat. Not sushi. It's too late. But I don't know. It's vacation week, right? It's Sunday. I could start vacation week early. Maybe I'll go get some canes or something like that. It's nice not I'm ending at 10. It's so early. But I'll be back tomorrow to talk Battle Century G Remastered. We'll see you next time tomorrow on Knights of Last Call. Peace out, everybody. Take care.